And one, Chair, we are live.
Welcome everyone to the March 11th, 2026. Excuse me. Please silence your cell phones. 2026 regular meeting of the Police Accountability Board. To access the meeting remotely, join from a PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or Android device. Use the URL in the public agenda packet. If you do not wish for your name to appear on the screen, use the drop-down menu and click on rename to rename yourself to be anonymous. To request to speak, use the raised hand icon on the screen. To join by phone, dial 1-669-900-6833 and enter meeting ID 890-0783-8093. If you wish to comment during the public comment portion of the agenda, press *9 and wait to be recognized. I'm going to acknowledge our land acknowledgement on page 3 of the regular meeting agenda packet. We have a very full agenda today, and with that, we'll go to agenda item 1, call to order. Aaron,
Thank you, Chair. For the record, this meeting was called to order at 6:32 p.m. Now proceeding with roll call. Chair Cayetano,
present.
Vice Chair Wilson, currently absent. Board Member Bozich-Charcot,
Here.
and Board Member Wells.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Currently to take actions, we'll need 3 out of the 4 votes. On behalf of the ODPA, we have myself, Acting Director Murillo, we have our data analyst, Saidi Madi, and our investigator, Danny Weinberg. On behalf of the BPD, we have Lieutenant Coates joining us here in person, and Deputy Chief Tate joining us remotely. With that, Chair, we have quorum.
Okay, great. Thanks, Acting Director Murillo. Let's go to agenda item 2, approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second. Okay, I don't object, so.
Okay, the agenda is.
We're killing this agenda.
Okay. With that, let's go to agenda item 3, public comment. And this.
Okay. As a reminder, speakers are generally allotted up to 3 minutes, but may be allotted less time if there are many speakers. They may comment on any matter within the board's jurisdiction at this time, except confidential personnel matters. I'll start with those physically present before moving on to our virtual attendees. Just one moment while I get the timer on the screen. And change the tone just so that we don't, it's appropriate for the meeting. And okay, 3 minutes, sorry, 3 minutes are on the screen.
I will try to keep it quick, but my neighbor here said he would see me some minutes if I can't quite make it within 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a real disconnect that I see going on in the police department, certainly in city council, and also to some extent in this body, which is what's being done needs some risk assessment. That is, the policies are written with the idea that, well, once it's a policy, it's going to happen that way. And everybody does have the understanding that you can't just say, well, this is how things are going to be done, and it's going to be done that way. Otherwise, we could just have everyone sign a pledge that no one's going to steal anything, and we would stop worrying about stealing. But in particular with the issue of flock, right? It's being trusted as if, well, once flock has said it will do this, when we have a policy that says, here's how things will happen, and here's what flock will do, we are not just saying that this is how the city of Berkeley police will act, which I have no problem with. I think that's great. I mean, of course, sometimes there's violations of policy, but that's not where my concern is. If the Berkeley Police Department was looking to hire an officer who had the kind of track record that Flock has been fired from multiple institutions, there are credible allegations of lack of confidentiality, I don't think they would hire Flock if Flock was a person trying to get a job here. But Flock is being treated as if, well, once we have this contract, not only are we sure what we're going to do, but we know that Flock is going to do this. There's a lot of reasons to really do risk assessment. I'm particularly speaking about, of course, the camera issue, right? There are multiple ways in which the information that Flock has access to can be used in ways and by people that we don't want that to happen. And yet we are sort of saying, well, we're saying it's not going to happen, and therefore it's not going to happen. Now, I know your job is to really talk about policy, but I think you could do a little more about talking about, is this policy realistic? Right? Can we depend on these things happening the way the policy says they're going to happen, or the way that a contract says they're going to happen? And I think you would have to say, if we do an accurate risk assessment of how likely are these things to happen, you would see that there's really a real gap in any kind of certainty about keeping data secure that's sent to Flock. I will just point out that, of course, it's not just that the federal government could come to Berkeley and say, we want access to this data, but the federal government could go to Flock and say, we want access to this data. And I'll say that in the current contract, there is a clause that says something about not providing, it's not just saying not providing data, but not providing, I don't know, these data mining issues or something to ICE, but it doesn't say anything about Custom and Border Control. And not only that, but there's a different clause in the current contract, which is publicly available, that says that if the government comes for information, that Flock can hand it over. And there's nothing in there in the other clause that says, notwithstanding any other clause, we won't hand it over. So in fact, the contract doesn't even agree with itself. But never mind that, even if the contract was beautifully written and was completely solid, right? We have a federal government that has known criminals, right? The president is a convicted felon. There are many people running the federal government who have been credibly accused of graft, of corruption, of many other issues. And the federal government agencies have completely disregarded court orders of what they should or shouldn't do. And yet we're assuming that they won't come to Flock with a warrant without good reason.
Did your friend give you all 3 of his minutes? I just want to make sure. Okay.
Okay.
Can you give her back 2 minutes? Thank you. Or 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. So we really don't have a good reason to have confidence that the government won't go to Flock directly, or that the ICE, which is big on handing out money to just get people arrested, won't approach a police officer in some jurisdiction that does have access, because we do allow police officers from neighboring jurisdictions to have access to our database, that one of those folks may not be tempted by a bribe to do lookups in our data for ICE or one of the other renegade federal groups, right? And then of course the sneakiest threat is the FISA warrant, which is absolutely a secret warrant. And if I'm glad to see that some people are beginning to notice that this is a possibility. A FISA warrant enjoins upon the person who sees the warrant that if they tell anyone they got the warrant, if they tell anyone that what they provided in answer to the warrant, they can be convicted of a felony and go to prison. So Flock employees are not going to say, gee, I'd rather go to prison than allow this data to go, their person's data to get into the federal hands. We don't know very much about what the warrants do because they are secret warrants. We do know that hundreds of warrants are issued every year. We know that at one point in the past, there was a case where it did become known that the federal government got records to all of the Verizon phone information of who was calling who, what time, for the entire United States, all the records. That was one warrant, right? I don't know how many warrants were issued last year. I know that there were something like 400 warrants that went out the year before under Biden.
Thank
the
you.
last time that Trump was the president, there were thousands of FISA warrants put out a year. That's just one risk, but you really need to be looking at risk assessment and not assuming that policies will be followed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another seat.
Hi, good evening. I usually don't speak on public comment. I usually watch these meetings from the privacy of my home. My name is George Perez Velez. I'm a longtime resident of the city of Berkeley and a longtime practitioner of oversight. And I rise today to support this board in their letter or commentary and message to the city council and to the Berkeley Police Department as it concerns to the unilateral change to the use of force policy. As someone who spent 7 years being the chairman of the legislative policy subcommittee, and as the person who was the chair of the use of force policy subcommittee who created this policy, I have to tell you that we had 7 meetings in which the union, the police department, and every member of the PRC plus the community was present. And the present and collaborative effort is what created the policy which is in front of you. It is interesting and a little bit disheartening to see that the police department has changed the process and the procedure by which a policy is reviewed, even going against the practice for 30 years prior to the inception of the Police Accountability Board. This policy was so important, the use of force policy, that is the only policy in which language was added, in which required that at least annually, the Berkeley Police Department and PAB shall convene to review an updated use of force policy to reflect developing practices and procedures best per SB 230. But the language was changed now to the chief of police or the authorized SB shall regularly review and update this policy. It is a little bit concerning that it might be considered acting in not in good faith to change the process by which this policy is reviewed by changing the language by which the policy is reviewed. It is a little disheartening. It can be considered a little bit of not acting in good faith. So I just have to say that that's the reason why we introduced this language when this policy was written, when this policy was voted by the city council, one of the only policies in my history of 14 years in the Police Review Commission in which city council took direct action in implementation and review of a policy. It is important to see that this year is changing that whole process. So I'm here to support all your efforts in writing a letter to the city council and to the department to do what they've done before. I have to don't know how the dynamic has changed, but the police department that I engaged for 14 years was always willing to be collaborative and to sit in a room and have the discussions that were needed with the community. ACLU, NAACP, everybody got in the room and changed and worked on policies from crowd control and crowd management of the 2015 demonstrations in Berkeley to the use of force policy. So to see this unilateral change to the policy and going against the major thing here is the change to the standard. So it is concerning, and I hope that you're successful in your discussions today. Thank you for your time.
Any additional public comment from those? Okay, seeing none, and I'll move on to our virtual attendees. George Littman, you've been granted permission to speak.
Thank
3
you.
minutes.
Yeah, thank you. So, I represent the city's Peace and Justice Commission, and on Monday, we voted for 2 sets of recommendations. One was against Flock, any contracts with Flock, and the other was against the current proposals to unban tear gas and lift the moratorium on pepper spray and smoke, and against proposals for police dogs and helicopters. I've sent them to the secretary and suggest that they be shared with the commissioner, the board members, in hopes that they will be illuminating for your discussions. Essentially, the flock item, it calls for no new and no existing and nor extensions of flock for all the reasons that people have discussed. The one I want to spend a little more time on is the other one with the chemical weapons. And I guess I want to say that the Peace and Justice Commission is a bit of an unusual organization in the city of Berkeley because it's the one body that is focused entirely on peace and social justice. So we find ourselves sometimes looking at issues that are also under the jurisdiction of other other commissions and boards because we take a slightly different slant of social justice. One example is the precautionary principle, which says you must prove not that something has a propensity to harm people, but that it does not have one. In other words, the burden of proof is on the people who want to bring that to the fore. So that's a social justice imperative that is part of the city law of Berkeley. Now, I want to say that in writing this document, we relied heavily on the PAB's perspectives. Number one, I can name four. Number one, the PAB's report about the submission of pepper spray reports. Number two, is the chemical agents in your memorandum about that. Number three is the table that the ODPA put forward about police dogs and helicopters is very helpful. Number four is the okay, we'll leave that.
Thank you, George.
And also on a number of very important studies that the predecessor,
Thank you,
the
George.
PRC. So we look forward to continuing work and to support each other. Thanks.
Okay, the speaker listed as virtual meetings, been granted permission to speak. Just 1 second while I get the timer on the screen. Virtual meetings, are you there?
Yes, I am. Sorry. Wendy Alston with Berkeley Friends Meeting. I first wanted to thank the director and the board for the very helpful analysis and in-depth recommendation regarding the pepper spray reporting issue that was resolved by council last night. For the most part, incorporating your recommendation and following it. Secondly, wanted to really commend the information that's provided in the supplemental for tonight's meeting and the proposals there with regard to drones and UAS surveillance. The really prefer that there be no drones, but the recommendation is if drones are going to be used to strictly regulate, including can only be used under listed circumstances and prohibited in all other instead of they may be used except or when. So I think the approach that you're taking is very helpful, and that will be very useful to the community in understanding these proposals moving forward to council on March 24th. We look forward to continuing to work with you and support your efforts at really highlighting transparency and accountability and actually having them implemented so that we can all assess the impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional speakers on Zoom that would like to provide public comment? Chair, I see no additional hands raised.
Okay, thank you everyone for your comments. We're gonna proceed now to agenda item 4, approval of the minutes from the February 2026 meeting.
I move.
A second.
Are there any objections to the motion to approve the minutes?
I'll just abstain since I was not there.
Okay, I'll do a quick roll call. Chair Cayetano was
Abstain.
abstention. Vice Chair Wilson,
Yes.
Board Member Wells,
Yes.
Board Member Buzzell.
Yes.
The motion carries 3 yes, 1 abstention.
Okay, great. Let's go to agenda item 5, on the staff report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep my reports brief. As was noted during public comment, I attended the City Council's meeting last night to represent the board's position on the use of pepper spray report. There were 3 supplementals that were ultimately submitted for that item. One on behalf of Councilmember Luna Parra's office, one on behalf of the mayor as well as a few other co-sponsors, and then one on behalf of Councilmember Casarwani, which incorporated the board's recommendations. All three took the board's letter and incorporated it into their supplemental. The one that was ultimately passed was the mayor's, which not only incorporated the board's recommendation, but added additional reporting measures to the Transparency Hub, as well as a referral to add additional details and expand it, the amount of information that's immediately available to the community. In terms of items that are coming up, the March 24th meeting, the appointment of the interim director is going to be on the action calendar for a start date of March 31st, I believe. And then, of course, on March 24th, we have the surveillance items that are going to be discussed at today's meeting. One other note, the Public Safety Policy Committee also announced their meeting date. They're going to have a special meeting on the 23rd, so that will be a busy week. And that item for the helicopters and K9 units is also on today's agenda for the board to take a stance. So it just gives, again, we have a deadline for March 23rd now to get in a position to the Public Safety Policy Committee. With that, I have no additional items to report.
Can you please clarify when you say the council adopted most of our recommendations? I think our recommendation was to add the reporting requirement back in to the controlled equipment or.
That's correct. Saying most isn't accurate on my end, so I'll reword that. Council adopted a recommendation to include the descriptions of use of pepper spray uses back into the controlled equipment ordinance that the city has adopted most recently.
Okay.
And then I'll provide additional details as a follow-up once the annotated agenda is up with the exact language that council approved on. But it did expand the reporting that I would even say it even expanding on what's currently being reported in those
Okay.
Are there any other questions for the director? No? Okay, well, thank you, Director Murillo. We're gonna go now to agenda item 6, chair and board member report. I guess I will open it up to other board members if they have other reports on agenda item reports. My only report is that I had a great vacation. Thank you for covering for me. And my Christmas tree is still up on my living room, so I have a lot of things that I need to attend to. But I was also able to attend the council meeting remotely yesterday, and I actually think it's significant to note that all three separate council members submitted supplemental items that incorporated our recommendations and explicitly thanked us for our work on the pepper spray item. So I think the work that this board does is important, and it's also being listened to at the moment. So I appreciate the work that the board is doing. The other thing is that I talked to the mayor before I left, and we discussed the appointment of the interim director, or the nomination, excuse me, and I was able to talk to Kathy Lee, who was nominated, and we had a great conversation. She used to be the former officer of the PRC, and so she has a lot of institutional knowledge. And I was able to share with her some of the things that the board is going through right now, and I think she is very sensitive to a lot of the particular moment in the year that we are at. And so I'm looking forward to working with her in March when that comes. Yeah, those are the two updates that I have. Okay, with that, we'll go to. Are there any questions about that before I move on? No? Okay. With that, we'll go to agenda item 7, the chief of police report. I believe Deputy Chief Tate is here.
I am, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to start by sharing, I had hoped to have more time to spend with you guys, but I do have a hard stop at 7 o'clock, so I'm going to get right to it. At the leadership level, we're currently focused on a number of council directed and departmental initiatives that will be presented at various meetings over the next few weeks. We're also looking forward to the March 18th community meeting that is being hosted by Mayor Ishii, and we see that as a valuable opportunity to further educate the broader community about the specific technologies that we're going to be discussing on March 24th at council. We certainly appreciate the collaborative partnership and the valuable feedback provided in connection with the OC reporting that you guys were just discussing. We've also appreciated the opportunity to meet directly with board leadership on specific topics, including the discussion that we've been having around drones. Earlier this afternoon, I sent a communication to the ODPA and chair, which I understand has been shared with the board generally. And that's regarding our updated use of force policy, outlining our understanding of the policy implementation process. We understand that the city attorney's office is going to be reviewing the matter to ensure that everyone has clarity regarding the process related to the particular policy. Our intent has been to follow the process outlined in the charter, understanding the charter's 30-day review provision. We didn't wait for that period to elapse before we engaged with the board. We instead sought your feedback prior to the implementation because we knew the issue was important and wanted to ensure that you had the opportunity to review it earlier. And finally, I want to be clear that we're happy to continue engaging through the subcommittee process to update policies moving forward, including the use of force policy. It should be noted that the use of force policy has already been updated 2 other times. This likely will not be the last revision. And as policies continue to evolve and reflect the best practice and changes in state law, it is our understanding that we are doing it according to the charter, and understand that we also have a disagreement in that process. So with that, that's all that I have.
Thanks, Deputy Chief Tate. Before you have to go, I have a couple quick questions for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Is it your understanding or the department's understanding that if the council votes on specific policy language, that you're able to then change it after the fact without going back to them?
So our understanding is that the department can update operational policies consistent with law and the charter review process. And like I said, I think we can agree that we're interpreting this differently, and we look forward to the city attorney's review and providing some clarity in that.
Okay, and then before a policy is implemented, is there like an internal process to make sure that it's approved by the city attorney before it's actually implemented?
It obviously depends on what the policy is, not for policies that, speaking to the use of force policy generally, we shared the working draft with the city attorney on December 17th at the same time that we shared it with the PAB. So with regard to this policy, it is something that we shared for review and feedback. We do that to make sure that we're not bypassing review and ensure that our policies remain legally compliant and effective.
I guess my question was more, do you have to receive, their approval before implementing it, or do you just submit it to them?
The latter.
Okay, so, and for this use of force policy in particular, has there already been like changes in training regarding the use of force policy changes, revisions that were implemented? I know officers are notified through the system, but are there any additional changes to training that you're envisioning taking place in the next month or so?
We will have roll call training to share the changes in the policy in the upcoming weeks.
Got it. Okay. Are there any questions?
I do, but do you have time? Because it is 7.
I can take one more question.
Oh, okay. If one of our recommendations tonight was to delay council action on the package of surveillance items, which I would say see the community video, the fixed camera policy modification, drones. I just want to understand what kind of time sensitivity there is for the department, any kind of factors motivating the or the need to implement or move these things forward now that we might not be aware of.
So you're talking about all the items that we're discussing on the 24th?
Yes, the master services agreement, drones, community video, fixed camera.
Well, I think some of it is related to, I apologize, I am not queued up to talk about all of the stuff that we're bringing and the factors pointing to that. I will share that I know that there's a contract expiration date coming up, so there is some pressure to work on that. And the rest of it, I can certainly get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Deputy Chief Tate.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on now to agenda item 8, subcommittee reports.
Thank you, Chair. For members of the public, our subcommittee list is on page 14 of the package. I'll now proceed in order in case there are any subcommittee reports. Policy review subcommittee, Chair Cayetano.
No updates. Are we still a committee of one? What is that?
Oh, we still need to have an appointment there.
Okay, well, I think we were waiting until we got new board members and that
Okay.
hasn't happened yet, so let's just wait on that.
Okay, great. Metrics and operations, Vice Chair Wilson.
I don't have an update. I'm curious if you've had a response from the city manager's office on the budget issue.
I haven't had a response yet. It's on my calendar to follow up with them tomorrow.
Okay. So just for the rest of the board, you may recall this happened when you were out, Chair. We had a presentation from the budget manager. And I kind of raised the fact that the board does by charter have the authority to review and opine on the department's budget submission, budget request. And so we asked for some clarification about when that was going to be shared with us. And that's what I'm asking staff about in terms of whether or not they've heard back from the city manager's office on that. And it sounds like the answer is no. So we'll continue to figure out when we'll have access to that information, and then board member Wells and I are going to work on that.
Outreach and engagement. No updates, okay. Well, I guess I have an update for the committee. I'm still actively going through our records for the most recent commendations. I know that's an open request and just want to know that's still in our team. And we'll get those over as soon as possible. Policies and practices on the cabinet clearance subcommittee.
No, I don't. I'm just seeing a message from our student assistant about her availability, so we'll get on that.
And any updates from any of our liaisons?
Nothing from me.
Yes. Great, so with that, subcommittee reports have concluded. Chair, we can move on for discussion and action items.
Okay. Any questions? No? Okay, let's go to 9A. Discussion and action on the proposed policies and acquisition reports for the unmanned aerial systems and drones as first responders. Board Member Wells, I'll cede it to you to present the item and then allow board members to ask questions and then of Board Member Wells and others, and then we can go into discussion after that.
Before we do so, just for members of the public, the material could be found in supplemental number 1.
Yeah.
Page 1. Sorry, go ahead, Board Member Wells.
Can I just ask a question, Chair, and just process wise? One of our challenges, as you know, in reviewing this kind of flood of information has been that they've been presented to us as discrete items, but in fact, they're very related in terms of the sort of comprehensive or interrelated nature of the surveillance technology that's being proposed for acquisition, as well as the underlying contract with Flock. So I do think it would be helpful to be able to talk about some of the issues, not in an item by item manner, specifically the overall context of an Uber contract with Flock as the sort of base or foundation for all of this surveillance technology. So I'm wondering if we can at least weave that into this drone discussion.
So 9B seems to me to be the most appropriate, like master Uber discussion about that. Are you proposing to switch 9A and 9B?
I'm proposing to kind of talk about 9A and 9B together.
Okay, I mean, like to the extent that 9A implicates 9B, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I think we have to take discrete action on
Each one. Okay.
one, but we can, I mean, the discussion, yeah.
Okay.
Do you want, yeah, but
Yeah, go
are you
ahead.
okay?
Yeah,
with-
I just wanted to.
I think it's on page,
Oh, it's in the.
It's in the
Supplemental
yeah.
one.
Supplemental 1, page.
yeah, do you just want to start and then? and then kick off certain sections tonight. I mean, it's, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you have to do it, Josh. You just want to like kick it to me then? Or-
Yeah, I'm kick it to you.
Okay. So. In terms of the unmanned aerial surveillance item, I think I was there for the presentation by the department. It was a great presentation, very informative, and I was grateful for them to be here. I did miss the second presentation, which was by the Berkeley Criminal Law and Justice Center, where they presented, I believe, on FAA regulations and some other items related to that, which are woven into this recommendation. But I think this like recommendation is multi-part. And so it might make sense to talk about them discreetly. There's the AB 481 part, which is compliance with state law. There's a point about metrics. There's a point about the policies, which is 3 and 4, numbers 3, 4, and 5 in the supplemental item. And there is a piece about fiscal transparency and accountability, which is number 6. And 7 is about the organization of the policies. 8 is about the specific presentation by the Criminal Law and Justice Center. And 9 is about this organization under FLOC and all the operational concerns and FLOC specific concerns that brings. So this is like a really meaty recommendation. And I think, my suggestion is to go specifically into the policy recommendations first. I mean, that's what I'm most familiar with. And then to have maybe other people talk about the metrics, and by share or Wilson, if you want to talk about the metrics, that would be helpful.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So if you look on the supplemental page 4 and 5, or 5 and 6, excuse me, there's some multi-paginated here. The first recommendation is limit authorized use of drones. And the second recommendation on this page is strengthen oversight and accountability mechanisms. And the third recommendation in this first bucket that I'm talking about is significantly narrow data retention to safeguard privacy interests and align with operational purpose. So I think the entire thrust of the policy revision around the drone use policy, which BPD is required to submit a use policy for unmanned aerial service, is to limit the discretion in terms of when they can be utilized to very specific instances tied to the very specific operational benefits that the department presented to us at the meeting, and to not allow for catch-all exceptions and B, what I would call high risk uses. And so I think the policy, let's see, where is here we are, on page.
You're looking for your red line policy.
Yeah.
That's in the supplemental too, right?
I think it's here actually. No.
Yeah, page 35.
No, it's in supplemental 1 still. Page 35 and 36. We're talking about authorized and permitted uses here, just so everyone's following along. Policy 1303 sets out the authorized uses, and 1303.2. There really is only 3 changes to the authorized use sections. The first is that it changes may to shall, and it says shall only, which means that the drones can only be used in the enumerated authorized uses in the uses that are enumerated below in the section. The second thing that it does is that it takes out 10, which is to respond to active criminal activity at mass gatherings or special events, and eliminates that as an authorized use. And I think this is something that we might have to discuss as a board to make sure that we're on the same page about this. And the rationale in my head, I mean, it's tied to my experience of the way that drones are used in special gatherings, but also in the expansive way that criminal activity is defined at these gatherings. And thirdly, how I envision this coming up in the context of the world that we're living in right now. So just to talk about two for a second, criminal activity in mass gatherings it can be an expansive concept. A refusal to follow a dispersal order, it can amount to criminal activity. And if you're not following it in the proper way, if you're not following officer orders in the proper way, that would be criminal activity. This policy, under the plain language of the policy, it would allow for that. And so that to me, like, is problematic. Secondly, another example of criminal activity would be someone in the crowd throwing a water bottle, it hitting an officer. That's criminal activity. You're assaulting an officer. Drones everywhere. Like drones would be deployed to protests. There's been instances, as we've seen in Minneapolis, of people in lawful protests showing up and using masks, instigating things, like they're just like causing things. They're not part of the protest. They're actually just ones who are actually instigating things. That would be a pretext under which they could be sending drones to then follow protesters to identify and surveil protesters at the scene. So I think all three of those are examples, easy examples in my mind, of criminal activity that actually doesn't even warrant. That would be too expansive of a definition. And I think in general the risk here does not justify the gains that could be made specifically in response to mass gatherings or special events. I think also in terms of the third thing that I mentioned was in the context of the world that we're living in right now. I mean, the time when this would come up in my mind is when there is a mass protest in response to a large federal government action. And, you know, as we've seen in Berkeley's history and past, like, I mean, there was just an event like a few months ago at Berkeley campus. Someone was arrested there. I mean, in that, I would expect in that event that would qualify because someone was like, I forget what the specific criminal activity that had happened there. Someone was arrested. But I expect in that situation, there would be drones on the scene. And so I'm cognizant of like how this would actually be employed, you know, in the real world. And second, the last change to this authorized use section is that authorized operators must first obtain supervisory approval before deploying a UAS, except where immediate deployment is necessary to address a threat to public health or safety. And then the supervisor shall only authorize deployment of the UAS in accordance with the section. The supervisory approval language was not in this policy. So that's like the big authorized use. I think that's the three main changes there. I just want to highlight the other biggest change to this policy is around auditing and oversight. It's on page 39 and 40, the supplemental. It says that whenever the UAS is deployed, the operator shall log the reason for the deployment, the reporting time start, and the reporting time end. It requires quarterly audits, not biannual audits. And it actually it mandates specific disciplinary mechanism, I would say decertification mechanism, if the auditor concludes that there was a violation of the policy. So that if an audit concludes that an operator violated this policy, that operator's authorization shall be revoked if the operator completes at least 3 hours of additional training. BPD shall maintain a record of violations of this policy. If an operator has violated this policy 3 times in a 5-year span, the operator's license will be revoked. And then I also included negligent as a grounds for disciplinary action. Those are the policy changes that I saw were necessary for me to feel comfortable with the proposed use policy for drones. I'm happy to stop there. There's a lot there. Or we can just talk about everything together. There's a lot to go on. I don't know what the best presentation method is.
Well, I think you kind of like dug into the weeds, and I just like to step back and say, I think compliance with 481 is really important.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the core elements of that is articulating the need for the technology. That is a statutory.
Right.
And as you point out in your letter, these key, I'm looking for it right now, year over year crime stats show that crime is down in Berkeley. So the use or need for the technology cannot be based on, this rising tide or wave of crime. We've had very general statements made by the department about why the technology is needed. And they don't relate to any kind of metrics or data points that we would be able to ever assess whether or not implementation of the drones was in fact effective. And so that's where the proposed metrics come in. But I think that's a really important part of the letter, is that the council does need to hold the department to actual compliance with the 481 requirements, which includes making the case for why you really need this technology. And I don't think that's been done. So I think that's another important part of your letter that I just wanted to lift up. I also, because in the Flock MSA letter, I was trying to pull out things that apply across these different kind of deployment scenarios. I think I just would flag that your changes to the audit provisions and data retention provisions in 1303 or 1306, I can't remember now, that we would just want to make sure those are consistent, because I think that's one of the recommendations, is that the audit provisions are the same across all of the surveillance technology. So if it's quarterly, great, then that's what we're recommending for all of them. Penalties for violation are the same. We just need to be consistent, is something else that I would flag.
Yeah, and just to mention something that you mentioned that I forgot to bring up, was that the data retention piece, which now I'm forgetting.
7 days is what.
Yeah. So where's that at? It's on 50. I'm losing the page here. 50, 30. Oh, here it is. Okay, sorry. It's on the top of page 39. 13038. Their proposed data retention period is 60 days, and I reduced it to 7. And I think the reason is explained in the letter, but it's essentially that the primary purposes of the drones, as we heard from the department during their presentation, all really had to do with immediate video confirmation and had nothing to do with being able to look back at the data and the footage in order to confirm something. So, for example, real-time situational awareness, confirming whether a law enforcement response is unnecessary, locating fleeing suspects, tracking vehicles from a safe distance, clearing buildings. All those are immediate video confirmation, and they don't actually require looking back in order to identify previously gathered footage. And in fact, that is the danger of going and rummaging into previously gathered footage for things that are not tailored to the explicit permitted uses. And so that's why the data retention window is limited to 7, in addition to the immigration enforcement concerns that have been raised consistently.
Well, I think the department did, one of the rationales it gave, at least orally, for wanting to deploy this technology was to support investigations. There was a comment that we would increase clearance rates. So that would suggest maybe there would be a need to keep the data longer. I know the community video footage, right, is going to be used for that purpose. So I'm not objecting right now to 7, the department may, but I do think that it is an issue that needs to be resolved. And to the extent possible, there should be consistency in data retention. Perhaps if surveillance is being used for totally different purposes, you'd have different retention timeframes, but the department did tell us they wanted that one of the expected benefits would be increased clearance rates.
So the way it's phrased in this policy is within 7 days if it does not contain any data of evidentiary value. That's the way that it's phrased. That's not the way it's phrased in other policies. I mean, I think that the council was like very adamant. I mean, we offered 60 days at our last thing, and they said no, 180. And because the department was saying evidentiary value. And so a lot of these things do not have anything to do with evidentiary value. I think the only authorized permitted use is 9 that relates to that. And so it really, I wonder though, I mean, personally, if that exception is too big, it's like an exception that'll swallow the 7-day rule, honestly. Because I mean, we would be leaving to the department like the understanding of what constitutes. I mean, they could theoretically say everything is evident, has evidentiary value, and then nothing would be deleted within 7 days. So I would be worried about that, honestly. But I think that the caveat addresses that concern, right?
I guess so, yeah. I don't know how realistic it is that they go through everything to determine if it has evidentiary value in 7 days, but I have no idea.
I mean, they would have to note that. I mean, the idea is they would have to note that. Like the permitted uses don't allow them to go back and to like retroactively be like, oh, maybe that has, let me go rummage through the surveillance footage to see if there is evidentiary value here. It's not like a storage unit of things that they can go look at. It's only when the permitted use allows for them to be gathering that footage for investigative, purposes, which is what 9 is about. I mean, the authorized use. There's no other authorized use here around that. And so if they wanted to do what they were talking about, the benefit was they would have to include a specific authorized use here, which is, I mean, at least as currently written, there's nothing that would.
Are you talking about 1303.2?
13039, 0.29, yeah.
Okay, but 1303.2 is circumstances under which they can deploy the UAS, not circumstances under which they can look at the footage. So I don't know what you mean there. I don't think we're prohibiting.
For the footage, I think the argument is the footage would only capture authorized
Uses.
right,
Yeah, so they could go back and look at it for a subsequent investigation
right.
of that authorized instance. I guess I'm not understanding, but I also don't think we need to. I guess my view, which may not be shared by the group, is there are so many things that need to be edited with these documents, especially in light of the fact that there's the MSA with Flock that's also on the table, and the fact that we have community video stream and the fixed camera, all of which have similar provisions, that I don't think we should try submitting. I mean, we can do it, but I don't think I wouldn't advocate for submitting like a red line that we expect to be implemented as is. Instead, time needs to be taken to actually do this correctly, like alignment across these different uses and addressing things to the extent possible in the MSA. That is my view. So I don't feel like I need to like resolve the 7-day thing here right now myself, but others do. I'm fine with it as it is. I just
Yeah, I don't, I feel like I don't know if 7 days is or is not. I understand your point, but I also I don't know how long it takes to like comb through, like if they've got other stuff going on and they're thinking they're gonna go back to it at some other point. It seems kind of reasonable to me. So I'm a little bit like, I don't know. I mean, maybe 60 days might be excessive, but maybe it's not. 7 days might be sufficient, but maybe not. So it just feels like we're kind of inserting ourselves in an area that I just don't know what the right date is. So I understand your point.
Yeah, I mean, the uses that I understood most, specifically from them when they were presenting was around immediate video confirmation. Is this guy holding a hairbrush or a knife? I mean, theoretically, they could go back and they could find something incidental to that permitted use, that purpose, that would have that is unrelated. But that's what we're trying to prevent them from doing. I mean, in my mind, that's it. Because the drones not only capture what is happening at the scene, but also can incidentally capture other people, other things that are happening around unrelated to that. Like there's that sort of like going back and investigating about things unrelated, like that's not needed. So I think there's the reason I'm kind of unsure about the standardization thing is I think there's slightly different purposes when it comes to ALPRs versus drones, at least in the department's understanding, like about what they're used for. I mean, there's like investigative nature with ALPRs versus this, although but yeah.
Well, if for other issues in the letter, so one, the letter does talk about the need to comply with 4A1 and lift up the, I think really do more to justify in the first instance why drones are needed. I'm not sure that we are emphasizing that enough here or in our conversation, because we're getting so in the weeds on the policy, which kind of assumes that we're gonna go forward with the drones, which may be fine, but I think the department should do the requisite work of justifying why they need them. That includes some quantitative metrics that we can use for accountability purposes going forward, and just to see if they've actually been effective at doing whatever it is the department said they were gonna do. On the fiscal transparency piece, I had forgotten this, but I'm remembering now, that the department stated that it was going to freeze or defund 6 FTEs.
Those 3.
It's 6 positions. I believe there were 6. Do you remember?
5 to 6 sounds.
My recollection.
Okay.
Okay. And I think in our letter, under fiscal accountability, we should have a bullet point that just says that this is what the department has stated. And through the budget process, council should enforce this, and we should monitor over time if in fact these positions remain unfunded, right? Because one of the things that Berkeley folks told us is that in other jurisdictions where these kinds of assertions have been made as a way of justifying this expense on drones, that eventually the positions all come back being funded anyway.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a bullet to add on the fiscal part.
Can you repeat the bullet? Sorry, I just want to make sure.
Well, I'm not gonna give it to you verbatim right
No, I
now,
know, I
but it's
just
the
want to make
6,
sure.
the 6 FTEs that the department committed to freezing or defunding in order to fund the drone technology.
Yeah, I think to me, I mean, I appreciate the commitment. With surveillance, it seems to me like it could be like AI use, where it requires more people to, like, I want to make sure that that's not the case, like that they don't like
Have you
change.
seen all the layoffs? It comes
Yeah.
from AI. I don't think it's gonna require more people, but yes, I think they made that commitment and we should
Yeah.
hold them to it, because that's one of the ideas is you will need less officers because you're able to be more efficient with drones. That's what they told us.
Okay. That is what they told us. I agree. Okay, that's a good solid recommendation. We can have that. I want to flag a couple things that I mean in the letter itself. I didn't write.
Well, can I
Oh,
ask
yeah,
you,
go ahead.
so are we not doing, so is the move that we're not actually, moving, like, are we making, voting on the edits to their policy at this point, or are we
So
looking at your letter? Or looking at the letter,
both.
both?
The letter explains the edits. If you want to discuss the edits, and there's changes to be made, there would be edits to the letter.
Okay.
And so we can go back to those. If you have.
Well, do you want, so would we, are we, so, yeah, I guess. I would, I guess a couple of things. One is, I guess I would say like on the number 10, I'm just not sure.
Where are you at? Sorry.
I'm in the authorized use
Oh, yeah. Okay.
section.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's where I was going back to. Which I guess I'm doing this because it informs the letter as well.
It
right?
does.
Yeah, okay. So I understand your point. I guess I also feel like there could be legitimate circumstances of criminal activity at a mass gathering where a drone could be useful. So I don't know if there's a way to add more definition to that, such that, I don't know, like, to respond to like violent criminal activity or something like that. It just seems like a kind of carte blanche, like you can't use them if there's a mass gathering.
So I would be okay with language that suggests something like, for example, threats of reasonable probability, or like maybe not reasonable probability, but something about mass casualty event around, like, for example, active shooter, like mass, that sort of situation.
Yeah. But what if people are like not shooting guns but doing something else that's violent, and it's at a mass gathering, and drones could be used to identify as doing, like, throwing bricks or something like that. Why wouldn't we want drones to be able to identify who's doing that just because it's at a mass gathering?
I haven't heard of them being unable to do that with the normal tools that they've been using. I mean, that's
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it still could be the case that, like, ostensibly, I mean, like, I don't know how often they haven't been able to clear cases because they haven't had this tool before, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are valid hypotheticals that could be raised. I mean, I hear them all the time from the department, but I think the vast majority of instances where I've seen them be used in other jurisdictions are not those instances.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And so it's more of a risk tolerance for me. But
Is your concern about risk tolerance or the abuse of the technology?
I mean, I guess abuse is like a term that depends on your perspective of what the technology is for. But
Okay, I mean, I can ask the question in a different way. What flexibility do you have for BPD to use drones at their discretion?
I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? That's, I mean, I don't have much, I have the flexibility that is laid out in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 11.
Yeah.
I mean, I also, I don't know, the red lines don't reflect this, but it doesn't, I took out a catch-all. Oh, yeah,
Well,
on 13, actually,
yeah.
it's there in the last, to address other unforeseen exigent circumstances where there is an imminent threat to public safety, provided the deployment. I mean, I think that that is captured already in 1. So I don't know why they needed that sort of catch-all.
Also, yeah, I guess I would also feel like I like the shalls, but I could also imagine a situation where, and we may just disagree about the mass gatherings, but I could also imagine situations that perhaps aren't contemplated here that that they should be allowed to use them. And so it would seem to me like, I think I would recommend that the supervisory, I think I'm pronouncing that right, approval be granted or be required for something that's not enumerated in 13.02, but otherwise it'd be allowed. That would be a difference. So I'm basically saying it's constrained unless you get some kind of supervisory approval.
And so what factors or methods would constrain the supervisor's discretion?
Well, nothing. I mean, other than they would need to get it, and ostensibly, like, the supervisor would be like, okay, well, you can't use it for just like any old stupid thing.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Hard to go through policy like this.
Yeah.
I don't have any more thoughts on the use. I wonder about one on the audits. One of the recommendations I have for the other policies is that the audit results come to the PAB as well as to the chief. So I don't know if that's a change you're willing to make here. And then you had language about, you added negligence as a grounds for disciplinary action. I just don't know if pursuant to the MOUs with the union, this is how you can add new grounds for disciplinary action, it's just a question.
Yeah, I mean, they would object to it probably. I mean, I think it's their job to object to it and our job to propose it. I mean, I would be okay with reckless. But I mean, that is something that they would say probably. I don't have their position in front of me. And I didn't get an email from them.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know the best way to go about putting everything together, but I do think that it's worth talking about the consistencies across that, like in terms of the audit results going to the PAB. I mean, if that's something we want to recommend across all of them, like I'm okay, I'm good with that. I think that is something actually that is part of the ALPR policy, I believe. So it should be across all of them.
Is it? I didn't really about that.
I think it is, yeah, because I remember it being acknowledged that it was
Okay.
by the chief. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on authorized uses for the roads?
No, I think what we have in section 3 is fine with me.
Section 3 of the letter, or
Section 3.
like which reflects what?
I think it's a little challenging conceptually for me because we're pointing out all of these other issues and then we're giving this red line added of a policy. The other issues that we point out would suggest that should not be adopting any policy right now. Because we're saying the department hasn't fully complied with 481. You should adopt these metrics before you do it. The department needs to fully articulate the fully loaded cost of implementation, right? That hasn't been done yet. The FCC covered list implications, etc. Unless what we believe is maybe the department's going to do all this before the 24th. Or what we're saying is we think all of these things should happen. And if they're going to happen, then you're not going to be able to take action on the 24th. If you council decide that, thank you, PAB, but we're going to move forward anyway, here's this red line of the policy that you can go with.
I do think that's what they're gonna do.
So then I think we should kind of be really clear about what we're saying, like, because we're putting out a lot of other things here and then giving this red line, and I don't want it to get lost. Like what we're saying is a lot more work needs to go into this. But if you're not gonna go in that direction, then
I mean, so we could reformat the letter to make those 2 points.
I don't know if it's reformatting this letter or what I'm hoping we agree to is a cover letter for all of these, the drones, the community videos of this. And in that letter, we could just say, like, first, there's so much going on that we think there's too much to do before the 24th. If you're gonna act on the 24th, see the drone, red line to the drone policy.
We can do that. I mean, I'm good with that, but we still have to agree on what that alternative is.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
But
I think 3, board member Wells, you pointed to the language in 3. What I'm realizing as I'm reading this is actually that the language in 3 doesn't reflect the red lines. Did you notice that?
No.
So
But I felt like this was some of the draft language that you sent me.
yeah, this is more expansive. You didn't, in your red lines, you didn't limit drones as first responders to a set of call type.
no, I did. And so my revisions are reflected in 4. But not the language in 3 is not reflected in the red line. So I mean, like, for example, this is clarify or remove in parentheses. I mean, that's not what the red line, at least as is proposed, is remove. there's no unless, it's just like remove. And so I think that would have to be consistent based on what we decided today. We don't have any specific enumeration of critical incident categories or, I don't even know, like.
Because this section 3 is about policy 611. Remember, there's 3, there's 709, there's 611.
But they mirror each other. I mean, like, in terms of the permitted uses.
Well, I think we only have a red line for 1303, not 611. That's also problematic. Because you couldn't take the department's versions of 709 and 611 and your version of 1303. There would have to be alignment done. Even 701, is that the number? 709, that's supposed to be the self-contained policy that satisfies the AB 481 requirement. So that would need to be edited to align with your edit.
Yeah, I agree with that. We can make that happen if we agree on the edits. But I think that what we're discussing here can be applied to what we see in front of us and then transferred over, right?
I don't know, because I'm not looking at them. I don't think they're exactly the same, but I don't know where 611, the current versions of 611 and 709, are they in our packet somewhere?
They're not in our packet.
They're not.
I'm sorry, no, they're.
Yeah, so. You seem to feel very strongly about doing red lines. I think it is premature in that we're gonna do sloppy one. What I would suggest is we approve the letter, not the red lines. And we do some figuring out between now and the 24th. If council is going to move forward and we try to get a packet of red lines for 3 policies, and maybe we just delegate to you the ability to do that with some broad parameters. We could vote on the use issue here. Because I think that seems to be the main point of contention. And maybe not try to rush or edit at this meeting. But vote on the authorized uses.
I mean, that's an option, but I know for a fact that they're already at a second, I mean, not a second reading, but they're at a second reading of this item. And so the policy is before them, they're gonna say yes or no. And with the last item, the fixed external surveillance camera, when it came before them, I mean, we submitted our red line to them within like 7 days and they implemented our revisions, but there's not going back after the fact and saying, okay, you approved it, like, let's revisit it again. I mean, like, all the community is there at that meeting discussing with the council our recommendations alongside what they're considering and being presented by the department. So like, that's where the focus is. And that's where it was last time as well.
Well, then it's just, we don't have the edits to 709 or 611 and it's not exactly the same. I know that.
If we could agree on this is about, again, this like lesson 3 is about permitted uses. I think in my mind, there's like 4 buckets, right? There's authorized uses, there's data retention, there's the audit process and who that goes to, and there's also the officer, like the penalties around violations. And I think those 4 things we can discuss as principles, and we can figure out, we can assign to 2 people to figure out how to apply them to across the 3 or 4 policies that are there. I mean, it's confusing the fact that there are 3 or 4, but if we just have to vote, I think we have to vote on those 3 or 4 things, and we can do so individually. We can break it up, so we're not like voting as 4 altogether. We can just go one by one to make it easier. But I think we need to like figure out a way to do that because of the timing of all this. And I think the principles are in this letter and also in the red line. So I think we have enough in front of us to do that. I mean, unless the principles, at least, not how they're applied to the red line.
Okay.
So maybe let's start with the data retention. Is there, we gotta hear from everyone at this point. Like, The let me just give some background on data retention. When it came to the fixed external surveillance cameras, we proposed 60. Sorry, we proposed 30. And the department asked for 180 days. And there was a 5-4 council vote, and the 5 was 180, and the 4 was for a sort of compromise of 45 days, I believe. That was for fixed external surveillance that had a very specific and different purpose about, having to, like, obviously there's no one actively monitoring that, which is like different than what's going on with these drones, which is why there's a difference in terms of the retention policy there and for ALPRs even. And so I think there's a reason why the retention policy is different for that policy as opposed to the one that's being proposed here. So, I mean, like, I'm okay with not having a standardized retention policy. That's my first point. And the second is I'm still in favor of 7, but I think I want to hear what other people have to say on both those questions. Are you okay with having different standardization of data retention because of the different purposes? And also, 2, what is your preferred data retention policy? The other thing that I haven't mentioned is that this really has to do with the other concern is that obviously access to this data can be accessed through federal warrant, through a federal warrant, and there is like a heightened immigration enforcement danger, and that's like really the only way that they can access this information is through a federal warrant. And so if the data doesn't exist, no warrant can access it. I mean, that's really the only protection that a local government has against the applicability of a federal warrant to our data is like if it doesn't exist. So I mean, that's the other reason in the background here.
Yeah, I feel like you already commented, so.
You did comment.
I approve too.
I didn't also.
I don't feel in any position to, I don't know what I don't know why the department wants to deploy drones. What they've said includes improving clearance rates, which means that they will use the footage for investigations. Therefore, I don't know if 7 days is a legitimate or an acceptable hold period. I really have no idea. I also think this is not a good way to do public policy. Like, I think it should be a more deliberative process. I think all of them should be looked at against each other. I understand you're wanting to push forward actual red lines, and I'm not gonna vote against it. I just have no idea. I don't have any basis to pick 7 days or anything else at this juncture.
Where was?
I think 7 days is relatively brief. I think 30 days is probably realistic. I think from an operational standpoint, there probably needs to be a standard data retention across all 3 policies.
Unless we have a rationale
yeah,
for why not. This is used for investigation purposes. This is not, then you have a data retention period for surveillance that's used to support investigative activity, and a different data retention period for real-time surveillance. Then that's good policy if we can come up with what those standards should be. But obviously we should be informed by the department because we don't have any idea how they're going to use data.
So what is their proposed data retention period is in this policy? Well, it's 30 days, right?
60.
I thought it was
60 days.
60.
Okay, so that is different than what their fixed external surveillance camera data retention period is. Their fixed camera data retention surveillance period is 180 days. And so if we were to say something like should be purged within X days, if it does not contain any data of evidentiary value. If it does contain data of evidentiary value, it would be purged within 60 days. I mean, that's in line with what their initial recommendation was, besides acknowledging the fact that there would be data that doesn't have evidentiary value.
Wait, they were talking about purging evidentiary data?
No, their initial language says. If it does not, okay, got it. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
So they're purging within 60. If it does not, and if it does not, they're keeping it for their standard record retention period.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm hearing that there's no consensus around a data retention period, which means, I mean, to me, that signals that, I mean, we would have to mix, I mean, at least like, I mean, we can express concerns without, you know, gathering our horses around a specific number. If there's enough agreement around the concerns, you know, I mean, like, that's another alternative.
Mhm.
Where is the red line to 351?
351 is, that's in the agenda packet.
Not the supplemental.
Correct, not the supplemental, it's on page 20.
I don't think sorry, I don't want to be realist, but I don't think I have that out.
What are you talking about?
The actual 351, because you were saying that, I just wanted to look at the retention period. 351 is the fixed cameras, right?
Yeah, it's actually on. Sorry, let me confirm to make sure.
I know there's a memo, but I'm not seeing.
No, it would be in last week's agenda action.
Oh,
Talking about the red lines or the actual, like,
the actual red line,
there's no red lines, it's a new policy.
351.
351, sorry.
That's what I'm talking about. Fixed cameras, let me see if I have it. Okay, yeah, it's here from last week's. So.
I have it up, but
Okay, yeah,
I'm just looking for the number of days. Like
180.
It's 180 in 351.5 storage and retention. Yeah, I mean, that's what I was explaining, the council voted on.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to look at it for myself. So 180 days.
Chair, I don't know if this is what you were getting at or if it would be acceptable, but like, you know, we could express some of the concerns that you laid out about federal officials getting access to this data if it pertained for too long. And as such, like, we would request that the department has to explain their rationale for why they feel like 60 days is necessary and what they would do to prevent the kind of situation you described.
I mean, I would be okay with that, and including the second rationale that's expressed in the letter around how the majority of the permitted uses only require immediate video confirmation as opposed to retroactive video investigation.
Yep.
I mean, like, I think that's based on the permitted use. I think it's a fair statement. I mean, the council.
So we should probably move on.
I know, we're struggling.
Yeah,
I mean,
you got 4 issues.
I just want to make sure that, I mean, like, that's good with me. I'm good with that. Yeah.
Okay.
We just reached this right now. Those two things, the council is going to struggle. I mean, like, we're suggesting it. They're going to be like, okay, I don't know what to do with this, but I'm fine with, like, if we can't reach a consensus, like, with expressing that alone without the red line. Okay. The other thing is around authorized uses. We can do the same thing. I mean, like, red line or not, we can do the same thing. There's 2 different recommendations around, one is around item 10 and the other is around inverting the burden. I guess I want to hear from others. Both board member Leslie Sharkrow and I have talked about both, so those are really the only 2 things. Except you said you were okay with as it was written, but I was a little vague on what you meant by that.
I mean, I'm fine with the permitted uses that we have outlining letters A, B, C, D, and E.
Right,
letter.
which are not reflected in the red line. Which I just want to.
This is suggesting enumeration of high risk and critical incident categories, which you did not do in the red line.
I didn't do.
So it's more restrictive. just like it's recommending a more restrictive approach to call types for Jones as first responder than you have in your red line.
I mean, I forgot to look at this and I agree with this. So I think this is like, makes sense to me.
You did remove special events or mass gatherings,
Yeah,
whereas this offers the option of clarifying. So this, in the option of clarifying, it might get to board member Beswell Charco's compromise because it says clarify. Not allowable at special events or mass gatherings unless there are prerequisites, which could include incident-specific threat assessment, supervisor approval, blah, blah, blah. That's a compromise position. Right?
I mean, I think they would say the policy already does that. I mean, there's a very explicit section around not generalized surveillance and First Amendment safeguards, so.
But this is giving a way for drones to still be allowed for special events and mass gatherings, subject to strict prerequisites. If you need to get 3 votes on board, it just may be a way to get there if I understood board member Beswell Charco's suggestion correctly. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I think, board member Wells, do you have a thought on this First Amendment item? Because I think you would be a third vote or you would be 2 and 2.
No, I mean, I like it the way that it's written. I think that,
You mean as written in this bullet?
as written in this bullet.
Okay.
But this bullet is clarify or remove. Do you
It's
like clarify?
I like clarify.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, let me
That's
be
what I
clear.
thought.
I like
I
clarify.
like clarify.
Okay, and I'm just gonna, because I hear that there's 3 and I'm gonna move on from that. I wanna talk about the specific enumeration point. I mean, I agree with the recommendation. It's also not reflected in the red line, which is fine. Let's ignore the red line. What do board members think about the specific enumeration as laid out? Board member Wells said yes, actually, did you agree with the specific enumeration limitation? Okay. Board member Beswell Charco?
I don't, so we're back to the letter, sorry. I do better, I feel like the policy is easier for me to follow, but now I'm, you know,
Yeah,
I understand
I think-
it's different.
Yeah, we're setting the policy
Yeah,
and we're
yeah.
talking about this letter.
Yeah, so so where?
Yeah, bullet number 1 and 2,
In
essentially.
section, in number 3,
Section 3, sorry, page 5 of the packet.
right here.
Okay.
These enumerations, and this is the mass gathering kind of exception process.
So just this is even more limited than what the red line refers.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't think I would be comfortable with this, but that's okay,
Okay.
if you got 3 votes.
You said you're good with this? I'm good with it. Okay. We're cutting up the pie really thin. And then, so we're good with 1 and 2. We're good with, I mean, we have 3 on 3. 4, I think is already, I mean, like, we can add that. It's not,
When you say
Sorry.
numbers, are you now?
1, 2, sorry, the 4th bullet.
Okay.
I'm going through the bullets
Well,
here.
we can say, I mean, limiting drones as first responders to balance of call types, if we're providing red lines of policy, do we need to talk about which call types, or we're saying we're agnostic on which call types?
No, I thought the call types are enumerated above in the first bullet.
Well, I think the idea of a pilot, certainly as we heard from the Berkeley folks, you'd have an even smaller number of call types for your pilot,
Okay,
but that's fine.
I don't want to get into that,
All right.
honestly. That sounds a little too specific for us. We can add the 4th one, which is the 4th bullet here. I think the 5th one that I would want to add actually is around supervisory approval, but that's not reflected in these bullets. I think we should just include it in these bullets, honestly, to make it clearer. Is there a
Supervisor approval for any deployment of drones? Is that what you mean?
Unless, I mean, like the language that was in the policy essentially, unless there is a immediate threat to life or safety or something like that. From Wells. We're only four, everyone got way in.
I don't know. I think if this language, in the enumeration of language, if we're all agreeing to, I just don't think there needs to be another layer of supervisory approval on top of it.
Okay. Vice Chair Wilson.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I do either, and I don't like not being able to hear from the department at all with the.
Yeah, but you have a representative right here.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I have not participated in any of their drafting of the policy.
Okay.
No, I don't know what that kind of thing is other than like a rubber stamp. I mean, it just seems like a bureaucratic activity. I don't know to what value. So I guess I wouldn't add it. We have it here. It's gonna be here for special events and mass gatherings.
So I just to put this in real terms, I mean, like one of their proposals is to have a drone in a car driving around. And we're saying that they don't even have to call a supervisor to make sure that they can, that a first, second year, whatever, rookie cop, you know, who has been trained maybe for like 4 weeks in how to use this thing, doesn't have to call a supervisor to make sure that what he's doing is following policy. In the same way that he would have to get supervisory approval before engaging in a pursuit with someone. I mean, like, that's like, for me, like, that's what we're talking about, like, this is like something that should not be happening on a normal basis. And so it's, when there is a specific incident, you know.
But I think your scenario just speaks to the question of training. It's just like, what is the training process? Not, for me, I think that there is a certain level of discretion that officers should be able to have with all of the tools and technology and equipment that they have access to, which is part of the concern that I have about why they want all of this technology and equipment in the first place. But I'm not gonna micromanage what they can use, when they can use it, how they can use it, who they gotta get approval from.
Okay, so we're not there. Okay.
Yeah, I would feel more there if I knew currently, like I had an enumerated list of all the instances in which officers need to get supervisor approval. Maybe Lieutenant Coates, is that something you can share?
In terms of
Anything, like if
Using
you're out in
equipment.
the field, what kinds of things happen that will require an officer to have to get supervisor approval?
Vehicle pursuit is one of them, right? Like there's.
technically, an officer can initiate a pursuit as long as it meets the criteria within the policy.
Continuing pursuit? I don't know, like, is there?
No, I mean, as long as it's within the policy and guidelines and they're giving updates and the supervisors are monitoring, they are allowed to initiate a pursuit. It's not required for them to ask us to say, yes, they can turn the lights and sirens and go. Any other equipment, obviously, it's based on whatever circumstances they're facing or level of force that they need. So like tools on their belt and things like that. It's not a supervisor requirement to ask them to use the pepper spray or baton or something like that. Other things, if it becomes like a situation like a barricade or something like that, it may be, or a block search with a violent armed suspect, there is a level of supervisor requirement when it comes to like the use of the canines and helicopters, and we go through those protocols. So in situations like that, but out standard just out in the field when they're doing their job, there's not oversight in terms of I'm totally predicting before you in that sense.
Okay, how about this? Supervisory reporting in the sense of like, I'm about to use this, I'm reporting to my supervisor, so the supervisor has a separate allegation to monitor.
But every time the drone is deployed, it's already being tracked and recorded.
Yeah, and in retrospect, like it's something that's done in retrospect. It's not something that's, yeah.
Well, it's being reported in real time. You mean being
Monitored,
reviewed and monitored?
Yeah.
Do you want to have a real time monitoring requirement?
I think it would be a very simple thing for an officer to be like, I mean, again, Lieutenant Coates, you correct me if I'm wrong, be like, you have your supervisor, like, I'm about to deploy the drone. Like, that sounds like something that would take like not waiting for approval, but it's a communication thing.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of times, it's not necessarily something that may happen all of the time, but there are times when an officer may say, I'm deploying my rifle, or I'm deploying the less lethal tool, or something like that, ahead of time before, say, a sergeant is there, or
Right.
or a supervisor. So it's not uncommon for an officer to say, this has happened, or we're deploying these tools.
Yeah, over the. Yeah, exactly. Is that, I don't know. I don't know. Are we
I'm gonna give you something.
No, I don't know.
I
guess
support it.
at that point, it's just like, I kind of, like,
Fine.
what's the point?
But I respect that you feel strongly about it, and I'm hearing that it happens in other circumstances, so I will
I mean, it
support
just,
you.
I guess it just, yeah, it just seems like.
If
It's
you're
gonna
against
project
it, be against it, but I mean, I'm explaining my reasons why.
Yeah,
but
okay.
I'm against it.
You're against it.
Okay, all right.
But you're against,
Two.
Yeah.
you're saying yes or no?
I'm saying no.
You're saying it, okay.
Okay.
I'm doing my best here.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did the authorized uses, we did the data retention,
Auditing.
okay, yes, the auditing, piece. Yeah, I mean, like, what's reflected in the letter is what's reflected in the red line is around, about what happens when an audit concludes there was a policy violation. I mean, like, that is, something that's not explicit in what is, provided by the department. And so I thought, you know, like, there's a difference between disciplinary action and having them not be allowed to be an authorized user of a certain thing. And so, like, that was where I was getting at, is not having them having, especially like one violation is requires training. I mean, but multiple would result in revocation. I mean, like, that to me seemed like a very reasonable you know, pattern of events. I don't know.
I mean, is it gonna be, it's gonna be logged already?
Well, it's not about the logging, it's about what happens when they discover an individual operator has violated the policy.
Oh, I thought that the policy was the operator logging the reason for the deployment.
That is,
Like, are you talking about that they're violating?
I'm talking about that part, yeah, it's like what you're about to say, sorry.
This is what the thing was. If an audit concludes that an operator violated this particular policy of logging the reason for the deployment.
No, of not that, sorry, that's ambiguous, about when to use the drone. When a drone is permitted to be used, if they're recording, for example, when it's not around the specific area that they're supposed to be recording, if they're using it for an unauthorized purpose, like all that stuff.
Oh, okay, I see. So it's kind of two separate issues.
Yes.
Okay.
Vice Chair Wilson, did you have
I'm fine with the audit.
you're good?
I'm fine with it. I just, I did want to suggest that we have the audit results come to us.
And yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay. But, board member Russell Charco, we have three, but I want to hear what you have to say about it before.
Yeah, okay, so again, there's two different, so we're not talking about the logging.
We can talk about that
reason for
next.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're not skipping over that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the 3 hours came from anything in particular.
No, but there was a requirement about how many hours they had to do of training before becoming an authorized user, and I think I took like a third or a fourth of that.
Mhm.
So like that was where I was getting that from.
Yeah.
It's not like I mean, you know.
Right, I know, I mean, to me, it's also like, I don't actually know what the training is, so you could imagine that they violated policies because it's like, I don't know, they were like filming people who were just not doing anything unlawful.
Right.
They shouldn't have been.
Right.
But that might have nothing to do with the actual training that they're receiving, you know, so 3 hours of training feels a little bit weird. But so, but I'm but at the end of the day, I'm supportive of penalties for operators not using the technology inappropriately. So sure, I'll go along with it.
Okay. And then I hope, Director, that you are keeping track of what's going on over here.
That
Okay.
transcript is going.
Okay, thank you. And then you wanted to bring up the last piece of this, which is about the logging reason.
Yeah, I don't think, that that's necessary.
The reason that's in there was you would have to log
What
this,
page are we on?
yeah, we're talking about the policy.
Back to the policy.
What page?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's page 39.
Page 39,
In the wrong supplement again, page 39, it's.
I can read it to you, it's one sentence.
No, I'm gonna find it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm there, go ahead.
It says, whenever the UAS is deployed, the operator shall log the reason for the deployment, the reporting time start and the reporting time end. I think this had to do with like, if there are specific enumerated uses, they had to explain which of the enumerated uses they are theoretically, deploying the drone for, which is not what's, like, that's not currently being, like, that's not something that they're required to do under the current policy as it's written.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just feels to me like that would be covered in an audit, right? If we're doing audits and for whatever reason they're deploying these drones in a way that they shouldn't, they're gonna get penalized. We're suggesting they get penalized. It seems like it wouldn't require that they file a report every time they use the drone.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not tracking with what you're saying. So like this would provide the ability for them to actually audit them, that they were actually deploying the drone for the reason they said they were.
Well, right, but I mean, there was language, allowing for, it's saying shall conduct audits already. I don't know if it got very detailed as to the process that they use for conducting those audits. It feels like what you're recommending is it's almost like a categorization to assist them in audits.
Yeah, I mean, like that's, so it's, I'll give you an example. It's the same thing that they do with the ALPR database, the flock database that they're currently using. They have to enter a reason. It's like 2 words. I mean, that's, and the 2 words or the 3 words give them an indication of why that data was searched. It's the same reason. It would be helping them, provide them with information around why the drone was deployed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't even know how they would know why the operator, I mean, like, unless they're not, I don't know if they're generating a report every single time, but this would explain what has to go in the report.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I mean, I guess it kind of begs the question of like how they were going to conduct their audit otherwise to find
It does beg that question.
But it would also seem, I mean, I guess I don't know, like, it would seem to me like, and I don't know if you're contemplating this, like, someone logs the wrong reason, like, I wouldn't want like discipline for that. You know what I mean? Like, so long as it's like, it falls within the rubric.
I don't think that's what we're deciding.
I get it. It's just, it seems like it could be an unintended consequence. Yeah, that seems fine.
Okay. Do you have that? You're good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you good with that?
Mhm.
Okay. I think we're getting somewhere. Okay, the last, I would say the biggest piece of this that we haven't discussed is about flock. And I feel like you have a big, MSA
Yeah.
pitch
So
about
maybe
flock, and this kind of dovetails into that.
So maybe we should take an action, which is I'll make a motion to approve the letter as submitted by board member Wells and board member Cayetano to be modified as appropriate based on the discussion at the local meeting.
Yeah.
And approve red lines to policy 1303 as amended to reflect the agreed upon policies of the board.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope our people are taking great notes.
Well, we have
We have
the transcription.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
I second the motion.
but I want, we have to carve out the part about flock, which is in the letter,
Yeah.
and say we're gonna talk about that separately.
Yes, if that's an appropriate amendment to the letter, because you could also keep it as is. I mean, the other part with the letter is it doesn't acknowledge or speak to the MSA because you drafted it before we have the MSA.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I think you could revise the letter to just take it out and say everything like flock specific is over in our cover letter.
I don't want to take it out, but
Yeah. It is very repetitive of what is in the cover letter, but you can keep it. I just think.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
close out this item and talk about
Okay, so
just.
you made a motion, board member Wells has seconded it.
Oh,
This
so,
is
but sorry, before we do that, I think we need to talk about not the.
Okay,
the language
then
of the
let's
letter.
go to flock. We're not ready to talk about, we're not ready to move that item. Then we can go
So
to,
is the motion being withdrawn, just for the record?
yes, we're gonna go to supplemental 2, item 9B. This is the draft letter on expressing kind of overarching concerns about consolidation of surveillance. The surveillance architecture under flock. And what I would say about this letter, it's structured to talk about 2 different things. One is just general vendor concentration risk. And this is some of what is also in your letter, Chair. And I think this is really important to acknowledge that, yes, you get benefits when you centralize all of your services, any kind of service with one vendor, there are benefits. But there are risks associated with having all of our eggs in one basket, so to speak. And so those are laid out in the letter. And I think the biggest one has to do with both cost and the fact that when you look at the MSA, Flock is allowed to update its technology without any oversight or control by any of its clients. And so if you're locked into Flock, you're reliant and dependent on Flock, it means you're very subject to escalation of cost. And it means, you're very susceptible to cost escalation. And you're also susceptible to a very expensive trade-off if you ever wanted to leave the system, even if they begin to do things that are very problematic. So that's vendor concentration risk, irrespective of who our vendor is. And then the second part of this letter is specific concerns about Flock. So in your letter, Board Member Wells and Chair, you have a table that enumerates a whole host of issues. Some of those are pulled out here, Flock specific concerns. And I think it's of note that, in any of the acquisition reports that we've reviewed for these multiple items before us, the department has not addressed appropriately these issues with Flock. And that in and of itself is a violation of 481 or the section 11 of our controlled equipment or surveillance acquisition ordinance, that it has not addressed any of these serious concerns with Flock. So 2 concerns are being articulated in this letter. One is just vendor concentration. The other is Flock. And so there are specific recommendations here related to the MSA itself, basically saying, 1, delay voting on this MSA so we can do more work because there are a lot of problematic contractual provisions. And then here are the things specifically that need to be amended in the MSA if in fact you are going to go forward with Flock. So that's in the recommendations section that ends the document. I saw that we got some comments on this from Brian Hofer, which have not been incorporated. One of the most important ones is, right now there are prohibitions on sharing the data with federal agencies. He flagged that we need to have prohibitions on sharing the data with non-California agencies, which could include other local police departments that then give pass-through access to our data to the federal government and others. So I could, go into some of those recommendations we got, but I will pause here and say, just open it up for discussion. If the board is amenable, this would be kind of a cover letter to our entire submission from tonight, where we're going to give specific feedback on drones. We're going to give specific feedback on community video, specific feedback on revisions to 351, And then this Uber feedback around concerns about vendor concentration and block specifically.
Okay, let's open it to questions first on the letter and then general comments. Is there,
I don't have a question for the letter.
okay, do you have any clarification questions on the letter?
I don't think so.
Okay, we just, okay, we want to make sure we're on the same page, talking about the same thing. Okay, comments on the substance then.
And let's acknowledge people haven't really had time to read it. This is one of my massive frustrations. We got the MSA at 4 o'clock yesterday.
Yeah,
And we are definitely in flood the zone mode with the department pushing stuff. I feel like, you know, it's a recognition that we're down, but we are not out. So it's very difficult to go through this
I think-
in any kind of deliberative way. So I apologize because you guys
No.
brought this a few hours ago.
I think this is I go back to, for me, like, there's an operational recommendation that if the department was not going to use Flock as a fully integrated system, and they're therefore going to use different vendors to sort of piecemeal together all of their technology, like, what are the benefits and what are the benefits and what are the trade-offs? And then I think what's included in my letter, and I think what speaks to your letter as it relates to the MSA, is I think the full transparency of the problems that come along with Flock. I think is the risk that comes along with Flock. And it's the risk of whether it's scope creep, whether it's a hard breakup costs, whether it's the sharing of data with federal agencies. Is that worth the risk to have a fully integrated system that makes it easier for BPD to be able to manage?
We don't know. That's what one of the recommendations is, a consolidated acquisition report.
Right.
I basically would speak to that. Here's the benefits and here's the risks. And you pointed out, like, one of the problems with the MSA there are really very limited ways for the city to exit this contract. Flock has a number of ways to exit the contract, the city very little. And right now, the liability cap is capped at 12 months of the contract value, which is only about $75,000, the way it's currently written. So, you know, you can see that we can't even go after them for any significant damages. So there are some things that absolutely need to be changed in the MSA.
But I think, and then again, I think to our letter is BPD providing transparency on what were your vendor requirements when you were reviewing and considering all vendors that is leading you down this path of wanting to use Flock as your fully integrated vendor provider.
And you see also, I'm sorry, I'll stop talking, but this letter, we have a monthly audits, proactive audits, years and quarterly, so that should be changed too. To quarterly is fine, just to be
no,
consistent.
so I was thinking about this. I think the department does more than monthly audits. They report out different. I mean, like, that's the difference. They're not like, the report is quarterly, but the audit is more continuous. Like they do them over the, like, they do them kind of like regularly. I mean, so I think the language here is fine. It's the reporting that's different.
Okay.
But and there's a notification process for certain types of things that they find, but yeah. So I think it's fine. I do have like comment generally.
I can
but
remember, but
sure. Did you have?
Well, yeah, I think I agree with the sentiment of board member Wells. I guess I feel a little bit like, yeah, I'm very comfortable signing onto a letter that makes that argument. The amendments to the MSA, I'm a little I don't think I'm comfortable supporting tonight, just because I feel like I just feel like I'm not in a position to comment on it. So I feel like more time is a reasonable position and like a justification as to why Flock instead of other vendors, and like, why do you feel like the risk of like a consolidated platform is worth it to the department? But beyond that, I'm not sure I would. That would be the main thrust of the letter that I'd want to send. But I might be in the minority too, and that's okay.
I have a question for Officer Coates. Do you know if the department has like a on-site IT specialist on staff?
Not like full time.
Not full time.
Yeah.
So it's not written in my letter, but it's like one of my questions and recommendations is. Does the department should have an IT specialist to be able to review the MSA as well as the integration from a technical standpoint to ensure that it's being set up properly to mitigate some of the risk related to data sharing or whatnot. As I think it's part of the process, but my sense is that it's a group of police officers that have drone experience from a usability standpoint, not from a technical standpoint, that have been part of this review criteria process. And I think that is a big gap.
I think you make a great point, just in thinking about sustainability, and I'm sure, I'm no police officer, but I'm sure departments across the country are having this conversation about the changing nature of policing as it becomes more reliant on technology. You need different kinds of staffing. And so when you think about what does it actually take to stand this up and the costs, like being realistic about when you're gonna have all this technology and a very sophisticated contract like this, you need a police IT person or CIO who really knows what they're doing. And I think that's a.
I don't think Arlo is like, I don't think Arlo is the person, but I wonder whether that kind of human resource need is needed within a department, whether it's on a consulting basis or a full-time basis. And I think part of the value proposition with Flock is by using their platform, you have access to their technical teams so that you don't bear that responsibility. But I think given their reputation and I think given the risk that comes along, and I don't really hold it to just Flock, I think all of the vendors that they consider will be susceptible to the same kinds of risk that BPD should have their own technical person to be able to review these MSA requirements, to oversee the integration of the system to ensure that all of the system requirements are properly set up to prevent some of these things from happening. But I think for me, it's also like a larger philosophical question for the council of, in full transparency, are you comfortable with Flock as a vendor, knowing everything that we know, that you will still approve it if this is what BPD wants? And on the other hand, I look at BPD and I think, and I would say to them is that I think if you are clear and transparent in your vendor requirements for what you're looking for, you should be able to choose the vendor that you think will best give you the tools to be able to do your job.
So I get, the amendments to the MSA that Vice Chair Wilson has proposed, to me, don't have anything to do with, the integration of systems or the usability of technology. It has to do with data privacy and the ability of the city to control the contract. So, I mean, I see them a little bit separately from the concerns that you're raising. But I agree with what you're saying, but I'm not sure how it applies to the recommendations that are listed here.
It applies to the recommendation that a new surveillance acquisition report be done for the cross application. That's exactly what would be addressed in there. Because if you go through all the required elements of the acquisition report, you would do it.
Which is not, which is actually not. Oh, I see. It's on the third bullet.
Yeah.
Commission a consolidated BMC. Okay, got it. Okay. I just was, okay, I got it. I have like some higher level thoughts about this if I'm
Yeah, go ahead, because
Okay.
I think what we're gonna be ready to kind of like.
Yeah, I want to land the plane soon,
Mhm.
but I want to be able to say a couple of things. The first is that, I mean, what you said reminds me of the opening to our letter, which is that something that hasn't been talked about yet, which is that, you know, the entire model of policing, for like the last, I don't know, 3 to 4, 5 decades now at this point, was around like community involved policing, you know, community policing, about like relationship building and high risk communities. I mean, like that was really the reform movement around policing. And it's something that the Berkeley Police Department adopted, and it's something that they were a leader in, and it's something that their policies, it's something that's reflected in throughout their policies. And this, like, what's happening right now with surveillance is like a really big shift in my mind, away from that model and toward a less personal, potentially like more invasive model. And so I think that the recommendation around this like assessment should address that shift and how that shift does or does not impact the other person to person, you know, like day-to-day interactions of the department, because I think that there is a lot of technological capability that could transform the way that policing and public safety is done in the city. And if it's not like done, if it's not expressed from the outset, then it can be very unintentional, have unintentional consequences. And to me, that is a concern of the way that this the large suite of these things have been proposed, and the direction that I see the council taking in a couple weeks. The second thing is, I thought that this letter was awesome, the supplemental. I mean, I have no idea. We got the MSA yesterday, I think. I don't know. And
4 o'clock.
yesterday at 4,
Yeah.
and you put this together in like less than 24 hours, and I think it's exceptional. And I mean, Brian thought it was exceptional too. Which is like really high praise, I think, because he's been in the weeds of this. I think that this aligns actually really closely with what we were explaining in our letter, which is that you know, there's a need to really understand and comprehend the network effects that we are introducing into the city. And also, like, I think it's across the country. I've seen so many local governments talk, or like commentary on different localities, where it's like these things are so hard to unwind once they're introduced. It's like really almost impossible. Like it's like once they're there, they're locked into the system. You're locked into contracts. There's like a way. It's like really hard to unwind. And so the way that we're rushing into this right now is like actually to me like very unwise. And so I think the first recommendation makes sense. The second recommendation to me like also makes sense. I think they're very like specified to having the city have like an ironclad control over the MSA. And I think there are things that other people honestly are too not technically involved what's going on to actually be able to like really focus on this. And I think being able to put this out there gives people debate things to debate that they wouldn't otherwise focus on. So I think that's really important to add to the discussion, because I actually haven't seen many of these recommendations. Like the MSA that we got was the product of a debate. And so these further recommendations, I think it's further bringing the conversation closer.
And I will say on the liability cap, one of the things we got from Brian was news that Oakland had successfully negotiated a much higher liability cap with Flock. So
Yeah.
that's really good information.
Yeah.
To have.
And I think 3, I agree with that. We talked about that. 4, I agree with the notification requirement across all Flock programs. I mean, I think that should be standardized. We need to include that across everything. Proactive access logs, yes, I agree with that as well. I think the other thing that I have been considering that hasn't been introduced into the discussion yet that I wanted to propose to add to this is one thing that I have like seen missing from the conversation is what ability does a private citizen have to actually understand what data is being collected of them and have any semblance of control over that data. And so I think, you know, I was thinking about, for example, they have PRAs. PRAs sometimes take like 3, 6, 1, there's a backlog of like 8 months to a year right now. I mean, like it's really, and getting that from a third party even would be even more difficult. you know, we have like across other social networks where you can actually like request all of your data in one button and then request that you delete everything in one button. And so I think I personally would be in favor of proposing to council. I don't know what it would be if it wouldn't be a public records request act, because that would be applicable to everyone. Instead, it would be like a private right of action for someone to request their data, all their data that's being stored by Flock, and to request that it be deleted unless there's a specific justification that's given. And I think like the delete part is something that the department might disagree with. But I think the ability to request and obtain your data that the city is collecting and gathering non-consensually is a really important part that hasn't been like really like talked about in the city yet. And I think that needs to be introduced when these amendments are introduced. And so I would recommend that be added to this recommendation.
And the city council can establish a private right of action.
Yes, 1000%. They've done it. I mean, they're very hesitant to. So a private, yes, they can.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, they can.
Okay, I'll support that. And another change I would like to make before we open up to further discussion, just because it's an easy change and Brian did take the time to review the letter, is that standardize the federal access notification, just that the federal should be changed in that section to non-California access notification. So that's the only change.
Okay. I would love Vice Chair Wilson, you said you support that.
As long as you're gonna drop the bullet.
Yeah, I'll grab the bullet. I want to hear what other board members have to think about that. I know it's not written down anywhere, but it's something that I was like just honestly thinking about as we think about this, you know, whole package that's going to council.
I support it. I don't necessarily share the same viewpoint as you do when it comes to privacy.
That people so okay. I mean, like I'm fine with what you're saying because you support it. I mean, if you want to explain more, you're welcome to. I mean,
I think I think the concern that people have about any level of right to privacy within public spaces is all but gone.
And the fact that we're living our lives online.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the way society is evolving, we just have a lot less privacy than we used to. I think it's a reality, but I support this. I don't know if any of you have gone on to that New California website where you can do this. Request deletion of all your personal information.
you can do it. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I just did it last night. It's a new state law. I did it, I can't remember.
You can do it across tech. You can do it across state law. I mean, like Berkeley should have the same thing. I mean, like that's a very like.
I think I'm not in disagreement.
Yeah.
With you.
No, I'm grateful.
I'll abstain. I don't know enough. I haven't thought enough about it, so I don't feel positioned to vote on it. Understand where you're coming from though.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we're ready to take a vote on the letter.
Yeah, on your letter.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that. Let's do that.
Okay,
well, I want to be mindful of the abstention because I want to be able to structure it. So let's do the vote for the letter and then add the addition separately. Vote for it separately.
oh, okay, but I don't, okay,
Procedurally.
because I
So you're
think
saying
we can
approve the
vote.
letter?
I think we can do a 3-1 vote on the letter.
Yeah, that.
Okay. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve
With the friendly note.
with a friendly amendment to modify the reference to federal to non-California agencies and to add the chair's bullet regarding private right of action to get access to your data. And this just proceed, okay, so that's my motion.
Okay,
I'll second the motion.
okay, and there's a question about procedure.
No, I can ask it later
Okay.
after we vote.
All right, so we'll call vote. Board Member Wells,
Yes.
Board Member Buzzell Charpel, abstain.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Wilson
Yes.
and Chair Cayetano.
Yes.
Motion carries, 3 ayes and 1 abstaining.
So I just noticed that this letter says it's from me, which it was drafting it. But now that it's been voted on and
It's gonna
everything,
change.
okay, it'll come from the chair. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's go back
I was
to,
gonna mention that as just like a point. I think like just on our rules, all the comms have to come from the chair.
it is
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
policy manual. That's why I wanted to say it. Okay, go ahead.
No, but I mean, like, again, great, this is incredible drafting work. I mean, it's just like, you know.
I don't need.
Okay, let's go back to what we were doing first. I personally, I mean, this is gonna be, I'm sorry, like pulling teeth and excruciating, but I think we need to vote individually on what we were doing. Because there's too many, like, we can't just, it's cross-cutting in too many different ways. And so, I mean, Jose, we're gonna have to, I'm gonna go try to go rapid fire through this, and I think I remember everything. So we're gonna go item by item, really. And we're gonna start with all the ones that are uncontested, I would say, which is we're gonna in the letter that we were considering first, which is under 9A. I'm gonna move to approve the specific recommendations 1, 2. I just want to make sure everyone's following. I'm on page 2 of the supplemental one. Yeah, I'm on the same page. Okay, I'm going to move to approve 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 1, 7. Yeah, that's my motion. Those are all the uncontested ones.
So it's 1, 2, 3,
No, I didn't say 3. 1, 2,
6,
6,
7, and 8.
6, 7, and 8.
Okay.
Can I make an friendly amendment before it's seconded, or should I second and then make an amendment?
We can second them.
Okay, I'll second. And then a friendly amendment is on the fiscal one, which is number 6. I'd like it to be amended to reference the position freeze that BPD
Yes.
said that they would do.
So.
Would you be in favor of my IT specialist?
2,
Yeah,
6, 7.
So we should put that in a recommendation. That they agreed that they would freeze 6 positions. But one of those positions, but if they were gonna hire somebody, it would be a recommendation for an IT specialist.
So you're offering those opinion.
Not to make it complicated.
I mean,
I think it would be better, Board Member Wells, in our combined acquisition report recommendation.
To put it there.
Yeah,
That's fine.
that they should adjust the needs for IT
Yeah.
support. So that's gonna go in the cover letter.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So the friendly amendment is to add the point about the freezing the 6 positions of the training.
Yes.
Okay, I'll go to our roll call vote, Board Member Wells,
Yes.
Board Member Boswell Turco.
No.
I don't think they're the uncontested ones.
We didn't talk about 1 and 2. And the 6 and 8. I feel like this isn't the stuff that we were talking about before.
I thought you said you were fine with these.
I don't remember. I felt like what we were talking about was the
AB 481.
Yes.
So, I mean, I was looking, it kind of jumped around, but I don't remember discussing these that were in this section.
Okay.
But it seems like you got your votes, so it's fine.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt the vote flow, but I do want to give you an opportunity to say on the record why you're voting no after the vote, if that's all right with you. I don't want to like cut it short any debate or anything unnecessarily, but I do want to follow through with the vote.
Yeah, was Vice Chair Wilson
Yes.
and Chair Cayetano.
Yes.
Okay, you know,
Board member Boswell for opportunity to share any thoughts on the record about, yeah.
I kind of feel like with some of these, I don't know, I kind of feel like even like, I think we should just keep going, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. Sorry about that. I thought we had done with, but okay, yeah. Okay, so we're gonna turn to 3 now, and so we're gonna have to cut it even smaller. So the first motion is to approve 3, but only as it pertains to 1 and 2.
Can I ask why you're doing that?
Yeah, because I want it to be on the record about the third bullet.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, 1 and 2 and 4.
So just catch it.
So this is 3, bullet 1, bullet 2, and bullet 4.
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, this is my motion to approve 3, bullet 1, bullet 2, and bullet 4 recommendations.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I'll go the roll call vote. Board Member Wells,
Yes.
Board Member Boswell-Turco,
Yeah.
and Vice Chair Wilson.
Yes.
And Chair Kazan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, someone needs to make a motion around bullet number 3, other than me. Or there was some different.
I'll do it.
Okay.
A motion to modify bullet 3 by removing the word or the 2 words for remove parentheses.
And then moving that recommendation with that modification.
Yeah.
Okay, I second that. So we're gonna say clarify, not.
Yeah, I understand.
remove.
Okay, so on the motion to modify bullet 3, to remove the text parentheses or remove and approve. At that point, it was motioned by Board Member Wells.
Yep.
And seconded by Vice Chair Wilson.
Yes.
Okay, Board Member Wells,
Yes.
Board Member Boswell-Turco,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wilson,
Yes.
and Chair Cayetano.
No. Okay. So, Evan, the motion passing?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go to 4 now. This is about the oversight and accountability mechanisms that we discussed. Although there are a couple changes, we're not recommending quarterly audits where we have a recommendation around monthly audits that was in the other ones. This will be slight friendly amendment to revise this to be consistent with the previous letter that we voted on. But other than that, this bullet number 4 will be revised to reflect the audit red lines. It would be a narrative to reflect the audit red lines that are discussed on page
39 and 40.
yes, thank you, 39 and 40. That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, are you still planning on submitting the red lines? You're gonna do?
No,
that?
no, no.
Okay.
We're not doing the red lines anymore.
Okay.
We're
All right, so we got a second, got it.
it's a narrative. Yeah.
Okay.
Got a second.
Right, Board Member Wells,
Yes.
Board Member Boswell-Turco,
Can I add, I apologize. So this last paragraph on number 4.
It's gonna be cut. It's not part. Yeah, it's just being revised to incorporate what's on
Yep.
pages 39 and
Yeah.
I can make it more specific, actually, sorry. Can I modify the motion, withdraw the motion and modify it?
sure.
Okay, sorry, I'm gonna withdraw the motion and modify it, just to make it clear. I move to approve, paragraph, recommendation 4 in the letter, under 9A. With a friendly amendment to, monthly audits for consistency. To be in line with the red line, to be a narrative in line with the red lines of 1303.12 as reflected on pages 39 and 40 of the supplemental packet.
I don't know if it matters that they're red and blue lines.
They're blue lines, thank you. Okay, give me a second. Second motion.
Okay, Board Member Wells,
Yes.
Board Member Boswell-Turco,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wilson,
Yes.
and Chair Cayetano.
Yes. Okay, let's turn to 5. And so I think what we talked about was not giving a specific day, but to maintain the two concerns around tailoring it to the specific purposes, recognizing that those purposes really only, the majority of them at least, tied to immediate video confirmation, and then the second concern about immigration misuse, and then taking out the specific day recommendation, but just like tying that. And also maybe flagging, well, no, we'll keep it at that. Those two things. That's so my motion is to revise 5 in line with those two recommendations, to express those two concerns around tailoring it to authorized uses, tailoring the retention policy to authorized uses, and to the concern about abuse by federal immigration officials.
I'll second that motion.
Okay,
I don't think I understand them. What are you gonna do?
We're removing the specific day of recommendation, and we're just going to keep in the concerns of the board around tailoring the data retention to the purpose and also the concern about immigration enforcement.
Okay.
all right, Board Member Wells,
Yes.
Board Member Bezel Turco,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wilson,
Yes.
and Chair Cayetano.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, I think the last one on this is 9, which is in line. It's really reflective of the first letter that we voted on. So I'm going to move that we approve the language in 9, 9A and 9B.
Yes, it's the language.
Is that a second?
Yeah. I'll second the motion.
Okay, Board Member Wells,
Yes.
Board Member Bezel Turco.
I'll abstain.
Okay. Vice Chair Wilson,
So, I think it's fine. I guess I just feel like, why do we have a flock specific concern section? A and B are repetitive with the cover letter, and I guess I think it could be like we're submitting a lot of material, so why not consolidate our flock specific concerns? I'm open, we just plug this right in. A lot of this stuff is literally repeated in the cover letter.
The only reason is that I think some people will turn straight to the drone thing and they'll see the recommendations in the drone, and I think it's worth repeating.
Okay, I don't feel strongly about it, but,
Okay, you're the last person to vote. So,
okay, yes.
okay.
and Chair Cayetano.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, so it sounds like we have voted on all the recommendations, and yeah.
Can I clarify number 3? As written, it refers to policy 611, but as we clarified in our discussion tonight, these changes actually need to be made 709,
Yeah.
611. So that should be an edit as well.
Okay, that's a good point. Do we need to, is there a way to incorporate that into the motion, or do we need to reopen that motion? I don't know how to do that, Director.
So this was recommendation 3.
Mhm.
Can you just amend it?
It should apply not just to policy 611, but it should apply to all the applicable policies.
That was a change that was discussed as part of the conversation, it's just standardizing, so.
Okay, we're good. Let's just make sure that it's, reflected as least. Okay. Okay, wow, that was a lot. I think I've covered every single recommendation in this drone letter, and we've also covered the MSA. So with that, I think we're good moving forward from these letters.
Then we have another letter.
I'm sorry, which one?
Committee,
That's next, it's another item.
another item.
We're not there yet. But I want to last thoughts, comments from the board before we move on from 9A and 9B.
Great work.
Okay, good. Yeah, that was really tough. Yes, great work, everyone. Okay, I'm trying to find my agenda here, actually. Okay, I got it. So we're gonna go off of 9A and 9B, and we're gonna go to, oh gosh, did we cover 9C? We're not covered.
The fixed video.
Yeah.
I've done a draft letter from us to council on both the community video streaming and the fixed.
Okay, let's present them here, and under
Yeah.
9C.
Okay, so that's in supplemental 2 as well. It's just a 2-page letter.
This is on page 9 and 10 of the second supplemental, the small package.
Page 10 and 11.
This
10
one,
and 11 of the second supplemental. So this is about community video streams and the fix, the revisions to policy 351.
Yeah, do you want to present this?
I do. Also, maybe we let board member Wells use the restroom. And people can,
We have been going for almost 2.5 hours.
yeah, let's
so-
take a break.
Okay.
Okay, bio break, 5 minutes, 9 o'clock, we'll come back. Okay, 9 o'clock, we'll come. have you print out and circulate the email to us so that we can have it. Can we switch the items around? Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, as long as we have it.
Vice Chair?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Okay.
I think, because this letter ties directly to both line C and line D.
Yeah, we're gonna move around the agenda so we can deal with technical issues.
Okay.
Trying to be more efficient. Remember, you get a little feedback from me?
Yes, it's fine. I have no, let's go.
Okay.
Can we go back on the record?
Yeah, we're back on the record, Trey.
We are back on the record. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for the bio break. I'm gonna make a motion to move up, to move down 9C and D to the end of the 9 agenda, so not after 9F.
Okay, I'll second.
I can.
Are there any objections to that motion?
No objections, okay. The reason is we had a technical difficulty with the agenda packet. Only part of the letter was published, and so what we're gonna do is we're gonna distribute physical copies of the full letter that was supposed to be in the packet. There's 2 pages in the packet, it's supposed to be 8. And we're gonna publish it online so that it can be viewed as well for people online. And that'll be done by the time of the end of this, by the time we return to these items, ideally. If not, we'll figure it out. But so we tabled C and D until after F, and so we're gonna go start with E now. Discussion action on the proposed resolution rescinding the use of air support and canine units and updating mutual aid policies. I think that, I mean, this is me. I didn't provide any materials for this, right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so our updated can you remind us, Director, of the updated timeline?
Yeah, so the updated timeline, the Public Safety Policy Meetings is gonna be meeting on March 23rd. Which is the Monday before the city council meeting where the surveillance is gonna be discussed.
And the proposal is to eliminate the current requirement that the department gets city manager approval before deploying or seeking to access other policing agencies, dogs and helicopters, right? It's simply to eliminate city manager approval.
That's part of it, and it's on page 48, 46 of the packet, and on page 48, we have a table that summarizes the differences.
Okay.
There's 2 components that the board is really being asked to consider. There's no changes to the way that canines will be deployed, but there is changes to, as the vice chair noted, the approval process. So currently, there's a requirement that the city manager, or upon approval of the chief, if the city manager is not available, be obtained before there's the deployment. But in the current proposition, it doesn't require that approval. Instead, it supplements it by an after action notification to the city manager.
I'm sorry, we're on page 48 of which packet?
Sorry, page 48 of the first packet. So not the supplementals, but that was provided Friday.
Thank you.
I love all you guys following along.
This is not, that's the one that I don't have.
That's page 47.
46.
It starts on
It's
46.
just, I just don't have it.
Here.
Here it is. No.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Ritual.
Allergic to paper. Okay, 46. All right. Or 48.
The table's on page 48.
Well, I think let's set up the conversation first and then go to 48 really quickly. The requested PAB action per this memorandum on page 46 is 1 and 2. Number 1, does the PAB support proposed decline to comment on the proposed change to the resolution, which would replace the prior requirement for city manager approval of helicopter use with an after action notification to city manager? That's 1. 2, does the PAB support propose or decline to comment on the proposed changes to the approved reasons for requesting helicopter assistance, which expand and revise the list of permissible uses? And then I guess there's a third one about do we support, oppose, or decline to comment on the proposed changes to the canine use policy, the canine policy?
But there is no change to the.
Yeah, it remains a change.
The canine policy is not a change. So they don't have to ask for city manager approval for canines now?
No, it would,
The canines is just the city manager is just the helicopters now.
sorry, I was just reading this. It's for both helicopters and the canine, because they're under the same.
So that is a change.
Yeah,
That is-
this is like the table is misleading, right? Like it says remains unchanged, but it's not.
Well, the approved reasons for the requesting the.
Oh, the approved, I see. So the first line is. Okay,
What?
The first line applies to both helicopters and canine.
Yes.
Did you ever get the utilization data we requested?
I did get the utilization data today. What I wasn't able to immediately get is just the average cost per deployment. I checked in with Arlo from OSPO over at BPD. And on average, canines are used 8 to 10 times a year, with the frequent use being as search for searches. In terms of helicopter requests, it happens approximately 4 to 5 times a year.
And we don't know how much it costs.
That's correct.
I don't see any reason to eliminate the city manager approval. But I just,
Well, I have a question. I would like,
questions and then comments, if that's all right. Okay.
okay, my question is the reasoning for this resolution is to remove a perceived bureaucratic burden?
Who are you asking the question to?
I don't know.
I mean,
I guess we're trying to understand the reason why there's this resolution. And
if you're asking me, I have a different answer for you.
well, we can look at Councilwoman Kesarwani's, item.
We received before. This-
Yeah, and it's hyperlinked. If you were looking at your materials online, guys, you might be able to access the hyperlinks. Okay, let me see what.
We did receive it before.
We did. So it's somewhere on paper too.
I think it was kind of like common practice, Berkeley being an ally or something like that.
okay.
Okay, let's see. Current situation is a fact. The 1982 resolution, which requires the pre-approval of the city manager, imposes a time-intensive effort during emergency situations, limiting the department's ability to quickly deploy both helicopters and canine units, hinders response times, and reduces operational flexibility. This limitation can compromise both the public and officer safety by preventing rapid access to resources that could significantly enhance situational awareness.
I have a couple comments on that.
You said we were just doing questions.
We are doing questions. There, are there more questions? Yeah, there's Those are good questions about what the proposal is and why, what the reasons are for it. Those are great questions. Okay, comments from the board if there are any more questions.
I do have one more question.
Okay.
Jose, do you know what the 4 or 5 times the helicopter use was for?
I don't have the specific, actually, let me double check to make sure. No, I don't have the specific reasons for the request.
Okay.
But just I guess one example of our current policies where it's clearly highlighted that it can be requested is, for example, vehicle pursuits. Again, I don't know what the specific 4 to 5 times have been for. But under the vehicle pursuit policy, that's one of the areas where helicopters or the availability is considered.
Okay.
Okay, great, thank you. Comments? I'm gonna start, and you guys will jump in. I think these proposals are not wise. I think there is a very simple approval process in place, and there has been really no indication or historical development, nothing to suggest in Berkeley's experience that has posed an undue burden on the department. I mean, we have seen no example of that whatsoever. We've been presented with no evidence for the board. what this is a very, like, in my mind, a very easy, a low bar, but it's a definite safeguard on the use of, and it's been in effect for 50 years. I mean, like, the helicopter thing has been in effect since like the 70s. It makes no sense to me why it's being proposed right now. And an additional reason why it makes no sense to me is that there is a parallel proposal to acquire drones. And I remember when I was talking with the policy subcommittee around vehicle pursuits. They brought up the potentiality of rescinding the resolution around helicopters because of like there's additional safety benefits with drones or with helicopters when it comes to vehicle pursuits. For example, seeing this rain. But that is precisely what the drones would then serve to do. And so like there's like, meaning the drones would be able to serve that purpose. So the expanded reasons of request like are also like redundant in terms of like how the city is thinking in terms of acquiring drones.
Just on that point, sorry, go on. I didn't know if you had other points.
I'll stop there and
okay. I felt like, I mean, one thing that they will hear about with the drones is they do have a limited range and they need to be charged, which obviously you don't have with a helicopter, right? So it stands to reason that the drone, to the extent that they're actually trying to like find out where people are going, helicopters are going to give them better insight than a drone is going. Less percent is going just within Berkeley's borders.
that is a fair point around specific
Range.
Mhm.
So I don't support the rescission or modification of the policies. I don't think there's been any stated or articulated need for it, as has been repeated by, I think you've said it, maybe board member Wells. I also just Googled how much does it typically cost a policing agency in California to deploy a helicopter? And it typically costs $3,000 per flight hour per some audits that were done in Los Angeles. So I just think from a fiscal perspective, it's important to have some, this ask the city manager before we go potentially spending. It can cost up to $127,000 a day for a helicopter. So I think city manager approval of that kind of expense, particularly when we're in an environment where every agency is being asked to cut 10 to 12% of their budget, makes sense. So I don't think we should support the
I think I share a similar view to the chairman and vice chair. There isn't any police data or natural disasters in the last 40 years that would suggest that the police would need to be able to access these particular tools without a city manager approving it. And I think again, the combination of having access to these tools without any oversight, in addition to the request for these new technological tools, it just feels like there's a continuous pattern of an expansion in the access of tools without any justifiable reason for it.
I'm gonna ask staff if we do pass a motion that approves what's beginning to sound like some kind of consensus. Is this a letter that we could ask staff to draft for us that will go to the public safety committee?
I think I'll answer that. I think we can ask them to draft it. We get the designated board members to approve it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm like, just because I know I've maxed out on my drafting right now.
Yeah, we should ask them to
I'm
draft.
tired. But yeah,
Yeah, that's something that.
okay.
But yeah. Board member Butler, you have any?
I think I'm probably more sympathetic to the change. I hear what you guys are saying. I could appreciate that, like, desire to want to move quickly, particularly if it's, locating a missing person or something like that. And it's a fair point that they could have made a better argument, but the absence of them making the argument doesn't mean that there isn't a reason that they're making this change. Like if it might not just be that they just want some more power. So, but I think you got your votes, so that's okay.
Well, I'm not suggesting that they want more power, but I mean, how much time does it take to get a city manager to approve the helicopter?
Yeah, I don't know.
And how much
So-
over efficiency is being gained
I
without it?
I would totally concede the point that they could have done a better job making the argument, but I don't know how long it takes the city manager to approve that. So like, it's hard for me to say that it should just be like not that difficult to request, because maybe it has been held up in the past.
Okay, well, I'm gonna make a motion. Please help me with my language here because I think my motion is that we, draft a letter to be submitted to the Public Safety Committee in time for its March 23rd consideration of the K-9 and helicopter item that expresses a view that the amendment to the is it one policy?
It says proposed resolution to the existing resolution. That's what it says.
They're the proposed resolution to the existing resolution, it has to be something better than that.
Well, no, so Councilmember Castellani's is proposal to adopt a resolution rescinding the resolution. So it's a proposed rescission.
Okay, so whatever I said,
Okay.
our letters in response to the proposed rescission. And it expresses our view that we do not support it. We don't think that need for the rescission has been clearly articulated. We're concerned about access to tools with no oversight or a pattern that seems to be emerging. And I would like to add, if board members are okay, well, we'll see how we vote. I would just like to add something that city manager oversight is important in this area, particularly with respect to helicopters because of the cost implication.
I second the motion.
Okay, let's go to a vote.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, your motion was unclear. I think you need to delegate to the.
Okay,
to the
so I'm
directors.
adding to my motion.
Yeah.
I'm asking that staff draft the letter and that we delegate to the chair to finalize that.
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
Do you second my amended motion?
I second.
Okay.
Okay. Go to roll call vote, Board Member Wells,
Yes.
Board Member Bozzell-Turco.
No,
Vice Chair Wilson.
Yes.
And Chair Cantona.
Yes.
Motion carries 3 votes for no.
Okay, great, we're moving. Let's go to my favorite agenda item actually on this list so far. If you can believe it, this is my favorite one.
Use of force.
Yeah. We're gonna go to 9F because just as a reminder, if folks are tuning in right now at 9:19, that we moved 9C and D to after F due to technical difficulties, which I think are fixed now. The supplemental is online. Maybe we'll come back to that. Well, it might be online by the time we're done here. But we're gonna go to 9F, which is discussion action on BPD policy of prohibited use of force, is updated on March 6th to 2026. And this is me. I think this is on oh gosh, we're gonna pull out a different. This is on the first supplemental.
That's correct.
Page 102.
Page 102.
Mhm.
And I just want to frame for the board and also the public why I think this item is important for everyone's awareness, and also the sort of developments that have occurred offline so that they're in the public record. When the department proposed revising the use of force policy, it was, I believe, right before, like a week before our December 17, 2025 meeting. And we invited them to present to us. And so they presented and we listened to them. And it was a bit of a surprise because it was, you know, they were very substantial revisions. I mean, like, there were some former board members who were very involved in the review process that took a couple of years, a few years even. And we have a member of the public here who is also involved in that, and in fact leading that. And they called these changes draconian. So I mean, like, that was their perspective. We didn't take any action at that December 17 meeting because I was informed and I communicated to the department that the policy had actually gone through the council approval process, and that the policy was the product of years of negotiation, stakeholder involvement between BPD, between the former PRC, and also between like the union, and then it was the product of a council referral, and then it went back to council, and the council deliberated on it. And if you look at the minutes, which I think they're printed out for us at the table over there, the minutes are to the July 23, 2020 meeting, which I printed out for people who are physically present, but you can find them online. If you see on page 3 of those minutes, you can see on the action calendar that this is right here, by the way, that there was a response and a recommendation around approving a revised use of force policy for the Berkeley Police Department as recommended by the Police Review Commission. And you know, they had a recess till 10:28, and they were going until 12:45 at night. There was a lot of motions to suspend the rules because they were debating this thing. They were going back and forth about these revisions that the PRC, that was the product of months and months of negotiations. And out of that council deliberation were specific amendments. There was a proposal to approve with specific amendments, the amendments of which are listed in the minutes. And the amendments are very specific around when use of deadly force is justified, how uses of force shall be documented, you know, different, like, very specific amendments that were made. And that was approved 7-0 with 2 abstentions. And so I told them at the meeting, you can't revise this policy because the council has made a motion and approved it. And you have to go back to them if you want to change it, especially these provisions that were deliberated at the council. And so I thought that that was the end of the conversation, that they were going to go and they were going to go submit an item to council. I mean, like, there's a very easy process where you submit it to the rules and agenda, and it goes before the council. The council might say yes, they might say yeah, no. We might have an opportunity to weigh in at that point. We also told them at that meeting that we were severely understaffed, and in fact, we continue to be understaffed. As you see right here, we are a board of 4 right now. And so that we wouldn't even be able to engage with them because we have been focused on, as you can see, the surveillance items. And so I was very surprised when I saw on Friday an email from Deputy Chief Tate telling me that they had implemented and distributed the revised use of force policy that implemented unilaterally all of their changes to the use of force policy that was previously approved by council. And I was even further surprised to learn that the council had no idea about this. I mean, like, literally every council member that I had talked to had no idea about this. I was even further surprised to learn that the city attorney's office hadn't reviewed the policy. How crazy is that? The city attorney's office hadn't reviewed the policy, and it was published and implemented. And there is going to be additional training on it, as we heard from the deputy chief today, before it has been considered by anyone but the department itself. And so, like, I couldn't believe that this was what was happening because I had never heard of the department trying to overturn unilaterally what the council had previously approved and voted on. And so my letter has nothing to say about the substance of the revisions. It has everything to say about the fact that we informed them that we told that they were required to go back to council to go through that process in order to get their revisions approved, and instead they unilaterally revised it and implemented it. And I mean, my language is very strong. I frame this as I language. My submission would be that the board, if the board approves it, this would be changed to the PAB. But I just want to I want to emphasize what I say in the last paragraph here. I said, I fear that the actions taken by the department are contrary to the rule of law, show contempt for the policy directives by City of Berkeley's democratically elected representatives, and make Berkeley a more dangerous city to live in. And so I asked that that the city manager and city council direct the department to cease and desist from their implementation of the supervised use of force policy. And in fact, I would add a friendly amendment to this letter that they call for a special meeting as soon as possible. I believe next Tuesday, there is a special meeting already scheduled in order to pass a resolution that would reaffirm their expectation. And so that is really what I'm calling on this board to approve. And I hope, I would open it up to comments and questions, but to me, this was really a fundamentally undermining, the structure of our city. So, I was quite surprised. Yeah, questions, comments from the board?
I have a question, which is, it appears to me that, and I don't know if I'm just not following the logic here. That Deputy Chief Tate's response from today.
Yeah.
Is more about whether they follow the procedure as it relates to us and less as it relates to the council.
Yeah, so I emailed her back, which is not captured in, so we got a printout of my email exchange. We can pass it around, but I responded an hour after this, after she emailed, and I said, your email doesn't address anything that I just said to you.
Right.
So
yeah.
yeah.
That's kind of it's just kind of a curious.
I think I was like, my concern is not whether you follow the charter requirement of allowing us to review it 30 days after implementation. That has nothing to do with what I'm explaining to you. That's not what I explained to you in December. That's not what I'm explaining to you right now. Please address my concern. I can read my email to her for the record, if you want to hear it.
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
And then it sounds like you did speak with council members about this, and it was their understanding as well that this matter needed to be brought before them for a vote before.
I don't want to speak to what they think is required, but I would say that they weren't aware that this was happening, that it had been revised. Yeah.
So, the city attorney hadn't seen the item before, but has the city attorney weighed in on whether or not our understanding that council approval is needed first is actually the city attorney's understanding as well?
Well, no, the letter is addressed to her. It's addressed to her as, so.
Okay. I'm supportive of it. I just feel like it's extremely strident, and we don't actually know if this is the city attorney's view. So I might soften it a little bit, but otherwise
I would support that as well.
Yeah. Same. Okay. If do you have specific areas where you would see this?
Yeah, sorry, I've lost it now. Okay.
And I'm not quite understanding what the ambiguity is, I guess.
Well, I read the council action. I don't see that as saying in perpetuity, if you ever change this, you have to come back to us. I get what you're inferring, and I'm not saying that it's not going to be the city attorney's analysis. I just think there is a possibility that is what the city attorney says, and I think we should be open to that.
I don't even see the other argument. I really don't. What is the other argument?
I get that you don't, because the resolution does not actually say, if you ever change this, it has to come back to us. It doesn't say it, I read it. So I'm not saying that, and I know that not every policy has to be approved by council before it is implemented. That's the counter argument. I'm not gonna take a strong stand on it because I don't know. And I would generally agree that where council was very involved in something in the past, it likely is expected that it should come back to them. So I'm willing to support it. I don't really think we need to debate it much. I just think this letter, for me, it's a bit hyperbolic in that part. And I wouldn't do it, given the possibility that it also may be, there's a different interpretation put forward by the city attorney's office.
I just want to understand, I want to understand what you're saying. And I think we can talk about the specific language that you're talking about as well. So like, I don't see how, if the council, for example, voted on a specific standard for deadly force, how, if that standard is voted on, approved by the council, how the department can then subsequently change that standard and still be following the law. I mean, like, following the rule of law. I don't, whether it's 2 years, whether it's 7 years, whether it's 10 years, it's the same thing as saying like, council voted, passed a resolution saying you can't have helicopters. All of a sudden BPD's like, actually, we're not gonna follow that. We're not gonna ask for approval. We're just gonna go get them. I mean, like, what's the difference?
Could it be that the standard that you were talking about, what if it were the case? I just don't know. Like, what are the antecedents to what was voted on in whenever this was voted on last?
The antecedents to what?
To the previous policy, the use of force policy. Was there a use of force policy before the council voted on it?
Of course, yeah.
So who did the council vote on it every other time?
There is a specific referral and community movement around this specific policy and having it be the.
Right. I'm saying, but like before the council, before everyone got involved, how was the previous use of force policy approved?
I guess if I was able to answer that question, what difference would it?
Well, because I mean, again, to me, if there was a time in the past where the BPD unilaterally modified the use of force policy, absent council action, that would matter.
I don't think it matters, and let me explain why.
Okay.
For example, let's say right now there's a practice. I'm not saying it's the case. Hypothetically, there's a practice of BPD going out and being able to use other jurisdictions' cars, like cruisers, without permission from the city manager. The city finds out about it. The city manager finds out about it. The council decides, actually, we're going to pass something that says they can't do this unless they get city manager approval. Before, it was something that was being done willy-nilly, but they actually can't do this without getting approval from the city manager. And then after that, that's the baseline. There's no going back to like, regardless of what happened before that intervention in time. It doesn't matter, because from that point on, that is the law.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think that there's just like distinctions in so much as, if it was such in the past that a use of force policy was just unilaterally done by BPD, and then there was one time where the council decided to opine on it and didn't give any order that all subsequent actions have to go through the council, one could make an argument that they have the authority to do what they do. This is where I'm more. I don't know if the vice chair is exactly where I'm at, but like I'm sympathetic to the position that you're taking, but I also feel like there could be an argument that we're not aware of, and as such, I would support modifying the tone a little bit.
So the only thing I would say, the sentence I would remove is the first sentence in the final paragraph.
Me too.
Yeah.
And otherwise, I think it's fine. I don't think it adds anything. And it might actually take away from it. So I think I will make a motion to move us along. So
Is there a way to revise it to reflect? I mean, like, if you agree that our reading of what is happening is probable, if not certain, like I understand you're not certain, but even if it's probable, isn't there not a concern? I mean, like, I just like, I want to be able to say something about a concern. And if you agree that it's probable, then there has to be some sort of concern in this, right? Like,
there's concern all throughout the letter. An urgent matter, unilateral decision, requires your immediate attention. I told them that they can't do it without first bringing it to the council. Nevertheless, the chief did it. To my knowledge, this never sought council approval. It effectively overturns the decision of Berkeley's democratically elected legislative body. I request that council cease and desist. I mean, your concern is all over the letter.
If that is if that is the only line you guys wanna get rid of, let's do it.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the chair's letter on to council on the use of force policy 300. With the modification that the first sentence in the final paragraph is stricken.
Friendly amendment to change the I references to the PAB.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I would even support maybe packing a little punch to the second sentence that says we urge the council and the city manager to immediately direct instead of respectfully request.
Okay, another friendly amendment, I accept it.
Yeah.
We're looking for a second.
Second.
Okay. All right, so order of roles.
Yes.
Order of Roosevelt Charco.
Yes.
Vice Chair Wilson.
Yes.
And Chair Farentano.
Yes,
All right, motion carries.
okay, great. Let's go to
Our last open session item.
9, yeah, D. Is
Impossible.
that what it is? Yeah, we're on D.
But it's time, you've had a lot of time to read the letter. And
Yeah,
already,
Wait,
Run it.
would we actually get the update?
Yeah.
Okay.
so let me just walk through it. Okay, and it's not ideal in that it does repeat some things that I just gave you. I read the hard copy. I think you have one somewhere in there. Okay, so the letter addresses community video streams and the revisions to policy 351 of fixed video surveillance cameras together. The beginning kind of summary of recommendations was posted, so you can see those. Some are specific to community video streams, some to policy 351, and some are applicable to both. And you'll see some references to the MSA amendments in here because, again, not having had all the time in the world to do this, there's some overlap in some of the issues that have been identified. And then part 1 of the memo goes into community video streams, and I really just tried to follow a structure of looking at each section of the BMC 2.99. So that's how this is organized. So where there are issues with the required elements of that, those components of the acquisition report, that's what I've called out. So for community video streams, there's supposed to be a discussion of potential disparate or adverse impacts on communities or groups. The acquisition report doesn't do it. Section 9 talks about a requirement to address third-party access to the data, rights to share or sell the data. I've laid out in this document how those issues are not addressed, but that in our MSA recommendations, we do take care of that. So it's kind of like a cross back to the MSA. Section 11 of the acquisition report requirements requires the department to provide a summary of the experience of comparable entities. This is a really glaring omission with respect to community video streams, because specifically with respect to community video streams, the department cites the fact that Oakland, they cite it positively. However, in Oakland, as I put in this document, the Privacy Commission voted 4-2 to recommend that council not allow integration of community video streams with FLoC. I don't need to repeat all this. The point is the department was required to provide this history or documentation of experience in other jurisdictions in its acquisition report for community video streams. It did not. The surveillance use policy I go into next, those requirements. We don't have any First Amendment prohibition on the use of community video streams in the policies as drafted. I think generally consistent with other city policy, namely policy 428, we want to prohibit the use of all of this surveillance technology in First Amendment situations. So that was 4A. Data retention, you can see there the issues that are outlined, third-party data sharing. So while we're talking about acquisition report and surveillance use policy, the department is required to submit both of these whenever it's going to deploy or implement any new technology that's covered technology. So this goes through the issues for all of those components. And you're not having time to read all this. What I can tell you is the recommendations are summarized in the 2 pages at the beginning. These other pages are the rationale. And that's it. There's repeated stuff here. Flock, no enforceable mechanism against flock is repeated with the MSA. So this is a lot of material, but I think it's important that we try to do some pushback on this to the extent the board is comfortable. We could, if you're more comfortable, just put forward the recommendations without the underlying analysis that you really haven't had time to read.
I would put it forward as it's written with the rationale. Yeah. I think this is more of a comment. I think the concern that I have is that it seems like we as a board are presenting more rationale for our recommendations
And
than what the department is doing.
Yeah, and now I've set up this template that when we get any new acquisition reports, surveillance, use policies, we can run it through this template. And this is what was killing me, is not being able to keep track of all the requirements. And now that we have it, it's like, it makes it, I'm not gonna say it's easy, it takes a lot of time, but it's a way that you can systematically go through what these requirements are and does the policy actually satisfy it.
Mm-hmm. Move to approve.
I have a few nits or questions or comments, I guess. I guess I'll talk about what we're on the substance first. The way that it's written, the way that the bolded bullets are written, makes it seem like we're modifying the use policy, but the way that I'm reading it and the way that I agree with it is that we're actually asking for certain conditions to be met before there's ever like an actual approval. For example, conducting a disparate impact analysis addressing whether camera coverage is concentrated in areas with particular demographic characteristics. I personally would like to see the product of that analysis before agreeing to approve anything. And so I want to rephrase it a little bit so that we're not saying approving with modifications to the policy, but we're actually saying here are like steps that should be taken. You know, like, I mean, like literally, yeah. So I mean, like that's like my first point, and I think it dovetails with my second point, which is that the way that this policy was presented.
Which one, CBS or 351?
CBS, so community video streams, just to be clear, is that the chief emailed me on, and the director, I don't know who was the, sorry, the director at the time, on a Saturday. And literally the way that it lined up was such that we could not add this policy to our agenda for the last meeting in February because the Friday had passed. So she emailed us if she had emailed us 12 hours earlier, we could have had 2 meetings to discuss this policy. But because she emailed us on a Saturday, we couldn't. And so here we are sitting with 1 meeting to discuss a policy that is considering connecting the community's video streams to BPD's surveillance network. I mean, like, that's what's crazy to me is like I not only like the reason this frustrates me is because I was there at the council meeting during the community what's it called? I know I'm sounding very frustrated, but I am frustrated. During the what is it? The radio encryption thing. And I expressed like what we had all expressed as a board collectively. This was asked before we had an opportunity to weigh in. Okay, I said that then. the next time they came to the consideration of the revocation of the police equipment ordinance. And during that, we managed to turn the boat around. And then the entire discussion of the council focused on whether they should give us 30 days to review or 45 days to review. And I explained to them, sometimes 30 days is not enough, because the way that the chief interprets it is it's 30 days until the council is considering it. So March 24, she would give it to us on February 24, right? As opposed to giving us 30 days to actually review it and then submitting it to the Rules and Agenda Committee. And so at that council meeting, I kid you, like, this is a discussion, public record. At that council meeting, the chief promised, I'm gonna give them enough time to review as, 2 meetings. I'm gonna do that for them. And here we are, literally a week later, she gives it to us on a Saturday when we can't agendize it, like for 2 meetings. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And so I'm just frustrated, like, that I'm having to weigh in on this, like, really, like, what I consider to be a revolutionary, like, ability that is actually being figured out in, like, commercial. There's like flock and ring, like, relationships, and there's police transforming the way that they do surveillance, like, within one meeting. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So that being said, I don't like feel comfortable with the language of approve with modifications. I think that there's a bunch of analysis that needs to be done before we say approve in the first instance. And I also would like to include in this letter that whole narrative that I just described, where this policy came to us with literally the ability to provide us with opportunity, 1 meeting to weigh in.
Is that the same for policy 351?
No, it's not.
Okay.
But I just think that the council has heard it 3 times. The chief has represented to them that she is going to give us the opportunity to review, and she has not. So I just think that needs to be made very clear to them again. This is why we're saying, here's that first, here's everything second. I mean, like, that's that, and like, I mean, like, plus, not to mention.
Are you okay with the policy 351 approve with modifications?
I was good with that. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm talking about community video streams. I'm fine with the.
Okay, so maybe one thing is we're gonna separate these.
The other thing is, like, 351, we already waited on. Excuse me.
Where we waited on the red line? Then why was it put in our packet?
They're adding flock.
No.
It's coming back because the directive was for it to be reviewed again. But there's a specific referral from council that required BPD to insert specific amendments based on our.
And they didn't do all of them, right? They didn't do the biannual.
For that one, I actually spoke with Arlo earlier today to clarify that. Their interpretation is also that it's gonna be done twice a year.
Okay.
It's just more of a matter of cleaning up the language.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I forgot, 351 was, council already referred that to them after we weighed in on that. Yeah, that was the whole process that we had.
But I'm not then why did it come to us if we weren't?
Cause it's getting approved under the flock, cause part of council's directive was for them to also, as part of the MSA, to include certain protections.
Okay, I'm not sure what to do with that, so.
I think,
I kind of feel like just leaving it as it is, because there's issues here that should be addressed, and if they wanna address it, fine, if they don't, they don't.
I'm okay with what you're saying under policy 351, but I have my structural concern about putting this timing thing first. And then secondly, changing the language in this community video streams, approving modifications. I mean, like, that to me is not the recommendation that I'm supporting,
Yeah. I feel a little bit how you did with the drones, like, I think it's gonna get approved anyway, so and the BMC 2.99 does not actually have any requirements other than that the department do something, meaning it doesn't have to like, they don't have to conduct a disparate impact analysis and show there's no disparate impact. They just have to do the analysis. They didn't do the analysis.
I
know, but I'm saying that's what's required.
Yeah.
I think I'd be okay if you wanna say, I don't know, just strike approve with modification, community video streams. The PAB recommends delaying approval until the following are completed.
I would be fine with that. delaying approval until.
Our-
I would just
our
say recommend
completed and-
completing. I would just say recommend completing. I don't even want to say anything about.
Okay.
But I do want to add this thing about the process that got us.
That's fine, I don't know, yeah, I'm not able to write that because I don't know it. I mean, I know that we only had one meeting to review this, but I don't know all the other stuff.
And we can coordinate on that.
I mean, that's, so I guess like my suggestion, that was friendly. The amendment is, take the following actions, on this policy. That's really what I'm suggesting.
On community video streams.
Right.
Mhm. So where it says approve with modifications, that would be replaced with, that the BPD do the following.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess we can say we don't approve or disapprove, we just recommend to take the following actions,
Yeah. Okay. What else?
the other procedural thing that I mentioned, that's.
Yes, adding that language, that would be in the beginning,
Yeah,
and you're gonna drop that,
yeah,
okay?
it would literally be drawn from every other thing that we've written about this, we did the same thing for, anyway.
You said you had other things.
Oh, that was for the two, I had two things, I had two things,
Okay. So are you gonna make a motion?
I feel like you're the one taking minutes, I'm sorry.
I'm taking the notes.
Oh, yeah,
You're
yeah.
making the,
You're
okay.
gonna, you have the stuff in front of you.
Okay. So we're gonna make a motion to approve the letter to council on community video streams and the red line of policy 351 as modified to 1, change the recommendation on community video streams from approve with modifications to recommend that BPD take the following action. That's the first modification to the letter. The second modification to the letter is to enhance the introductory paragraph to include context on the timing of the PAB's receipt of the CVS policy and general concerns about the timing for review of BPD policy.
Second.
Board Member Wells,
Yes.
Board Member Bozick-Rico,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wilson.
Yes.
And Chair Cannon.
Yes, thanks for entertaining my soliloquy. Now I got on my soapbox. Okay, I think we're done. Wow, that was incredible.
That motion takes to account item 90.
We're on that, what?
No, I said that motion took into account item 90.
Yeah, we can solve, okay, let's go, to, we're gonna go to agenda item 10, public comment, and, then we'll, go to closed session after that, but let's, Director, can you, read the thing?
Just as a reminder, speakers are generally allotted up to 3 minutes, maybe allotted less time with our many speakers. If you comment on any matter in the board jurisdiction at this time, except confidential personnel matters. I'll start with those physically present and then move on to our virtual attendees. And when you're ready, there are 3 minutes on the screen.
So Kit Saganor, I really, really appreciate the work you've done this evening, and I really hope that council listens to what you have to do. As I said to board member Wilson during the break, I have this fantasy of lining up, 100 people to go to the city council meeting and read your letters to them. In 2-minute chunks, but I don't think I can succeed in doing that, but it would be really informative to everybody there if that would happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to add some clarity to the vote on the letter to the city council regarding the use of force policy. I think something needs to be really clear here. I think maybe the pivot should have been about the minimal standard. The city council on an emergency resolution directed the police review commission and the police department to create and write a minimal use of force standard. It wasn't about reviewing the policy. They directed them to write a minimal use of force standard. That was the request on the referral. Then they voted to implement that. As a catch-all, they said, even though you might have some other restrictions related to how you review policy,
inside of this policy, we're gonna put this standard, which requires that you all get together with them before any changes to that policy take place. So I think that that's where the misunderstanding is. This wasn't about whether the city council can do a policy or not, or can review any policy, or have we need to do another review policy. This was a direct mandate to the department to write a minimal use of standard. They took it out. The Ninth Court of Appeal said that you can create a stronger or stricter standard at any time. Was never argued against the Supreme Court. We have the right as a jurisdiction in the city to apply a stricter use of force standard. That was the dictate of the city council. That was what it voted for. They took it out. They're saying to the city council and to the community of Berkeley, we're no longer going to use a minimum standard, regardless of your vote. 250 people stood and talked about this. That's why it took so long for the vote to happen. If right now you pass this flock camera policy and it says no cooperation with ICE unless there's a bench warrant sign, not administrative warrant. And that is the policy the city council implements as a directive to the police department. A year from now, they say, we're not gonna do that any longer. We're gonna give the information out to anyone, regardless of whether it's a signed warrant or just an administrative warrant. Is that a review of the policy, or is that a violation of the dictate, the mandate, and direct order by the city council to implement something? If you look at it that way, you see what the problem is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional speakers? And 3 minutes are on the screen.
Yeah, I don't have that much to say other than this is absolutely fucking crazy, and this should have never ever been modified in the first place. These were already clear minimum standards, so. I mean, thank you for everything you guys are doing, and sorry, this is a shitty place to be, but appreciate your work and trying to sort of, actually present the interests of the residents of Berkeley rather than the health safety, which, doesn't need to be endangered if you're not pepper spraying to people at all. So, thank you.
Okay, next speaker.
Yeah, I just want to echo what the last speaker said. I think it's ridiculous. Also, this is a meeting where it's like 10 p.m. Nobody knows what's happening. And I feel like it's really easy when everybody's talking about this to be like, oh, this is about numbers, it's about like all these specific details of trainings, but we're not thinking about the fact that this is violence that's going to be executed against your neighbors, against the residents of the city, and that is not being taken seriously enough in this room or in city council. And so I want to thank y'all. Like, this is not to yell at y'all. Y'all are doing really important work and are kind of the only bulwark right now between the police doing literally anything and everything they can to repress us in any way possible. But like, really, it is so important for us as the general public to have this accountability, to have any sort of accountability from the city, from our police department, into the policies that, again, are going to directly impact us. Like, it's so easy to think about crime in this really vague way, to think about law and order, and to forget that at the end of the day, when this data is shared with ICE, our neighbors are being kidnapped. They're being taken to detention facilities where we have no idea what is happening. We know there's rampant sexual violence. We know children are being separated from their families. I want each and every single one of you in this room to really think about the violence that is happening every single day in our community. Thank you.
Any additional speakers before I move on to our virtual attendees? Okay, we'll now move on to our virtual attendees. If you're attending remotely and would like to provide public comment, please use the raise hand icon or *9. Again, if you'd like to provide public comment or attending virtually, please use the raise hand icon or *9 to be recognized. Chair, I have no additional public comment online.
Great, okay. Thank you all for your comments. Appreciate you being here. With that, we'll move to closed session.
You ready for our closed action? We are chair, we are back.
We should get myself.
Okay, sorry, I don't know why I just pounded the gavel. We, the PAB, heard one item and we approved the majority of staff's recommendation and disapprove of another. And with that, I would like to go to agenda item 13, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.